woke. That's Dan Wootton Tonight on TV, radio and online, Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Lawrence Fox, on GB News. Frank, fun, fearless and sometimes serious. Much as I love a Friday night punch-up, what I really want is a battle of ideas. I want to look at things differently. I want to hear different voices and engage with your unique experiences. Every Friday at 7 p.m. on GB News.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
It's exactly 8 o'clock and this is Mark Dolan Tonight. Starting, as you well now know, every Friday and Saturday at 8 o'clock. 3 hours of debate, opinion and plenty of entertainment along the way. We start with the People's Hour, in which I'll be taking your video calls. Tonight's topics: should we have more sympathy for those on strike? Is Prince Harry the real villain? And are Christmas songs naff? After 9, as always, we've got my big opinion monologue, in which I'll be dealing with Elton John and his outrageous hypocrisy, and I say that as a fan. And in my Take at 10, the scandal of Christmas cards that may not arrive until February. What's the point in that? Plus my all-star panel, US showbiz queen Kinsey Schofield, and tomorrow's papers 10 minutes earlier than everyone else at 10:20. We've also got Big Sam Allardyce, former England manager, reacting to the outcome of the England-France game in the World Cup. Of course, I'll keep you up to date with how it's going. The scoreline is currently 1-0 to France. So lots to get through, a big 3 hours. But first, the headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Mark, thank you. This is the latest from the GB Newsroom. At least 3 people have been killed in an explosion on the island of Jersey. The blast happened in a tower block of flats in the early hours of the morning in St Helier. It's feared the number of casualties could still climb, with around a dozen people thought to be missing. Chief Fire Officer Paul Brown says the search and rescue operation could take days.
It is a total collapse. And so the primary challenge is that, one, it is dangerous to operate in and around the area, but secondly, anything that we do or don't do in the wrong way might then jeopardise the chances of survival for somebody who might yet be able to be, sort of rescued. So we have to do everything in a slow, methodical way, and we have to make sure that all of the right equipment with the right expertise is in place in order to do that.
Defending World Cup champions France are leading 1-0 in their quarter-final clash with England. It's now half-time. The second half gets underway shortly. And the winner of that match will face Morocco, which has become the first African nation to make it through to the semi-finals after beating Portugal 1-0. Energy regulator Ofgem says it's extremely concerned that vulnerable people in Sheffield have been without gas for a week. Hundreds of customers were left without heating after a water main burst last Friday, saturating the gas network. Ofgem has described the situation as extremely difficult, made worse by the sudden cold snap. Distribution company Cadent says all affected homes and commercial properties will be automatically compensated. Meanwhile, freezing temperatures have been causing travel problems across the country. Manchester Airport was forced to temporarily close both runways after heavy snow, affecting dozens of flights. Yellow warnings are in place across Scotland, Northern Ireland, Wales, the southwest and southeast of England this weekend, with temperatures expected to drop to as low as -10 degrees in some isolated areas. RMT General Secretary Mick Lynch has called for an urgent meeting with the Prime Minister. It's to try to resolve the long-running dispute over pay and conditions for rail workers. Union members are due to stage 2 48-hour strikes next week following months of industrial action over the deadlocked row. And around 200 migrants have been intercepted crossing the Channel today. One group managed to land on a beach at Samfirehoe near Dover. They've now been taken to the Manston Processing Centre. Calmer conditions are reportedly making the journey easier today. Over 44,000 people have crossed the Channel so far this year. TV, online and DAB+ radio. This is GB News. Now it's back to Mark Dolan tonight.
Thanks, Tatiana. We'll see you in an hour's time. Welcome to Mark Dolan Tonight. We start with the People's Hour, in which I'll be taking your video calls on the big stories of the day. Tonight, the stars of the show are Zachary in Leicester, Sue in Cheshire, Susan in South Wales, Adik in Medway, and Andrew in Essex. We'll be hearing lots from them over the next hour. The topics we're debating: should we have more sympathy for those on strike? Is Prince Harry the real villain? And are Christmas songs naff? And I'm delighted to say my Saturday sidekick for the first hour of the show is political commentator and writer Ella Whelan. And she's in a good mood. She's had a kind of works drink this afternoon, so she's nicely oiled, as I hope you are. After 9 in My Big Opinion, as always, we will debate the big story of the day, and today it's Elton John. I'll be calling out his outrageous hypocrisy, and I say that as a big fan of this piano genius. And in my Take at 10, the scandal of Christmas cards that may not arrive until February. What's the point? Plus my all-star panel, US showbiz queen Kinsey Schofield, and tomorrow's papers. We've also got former England manager Big Sam Allardyce reacting to the England versus France game. Of course, I'll keep you up to date with the scoreline throughout. So, this is a name you'll be hearing very regularly through the evening. Christina, what is the score? It's 1-0. 1-0 to France. I'm sure England can fight back. But it's the best of both worlds. You've got a stimulating, entertaining show, but we also keep you up to speed with what's happening in that game. Come on, England. So it is Saturday night. Put something cold and fizzy in the fridge or fire up the kettle and let's have a night to remember. Your video calls in just a moment, but first, my look back at the week in Dolan's diary. The Conservative Party's chipolata smuggler-in-chief, the jungle-dwelling reptile that is Matt Hancock, has announced he will leave Parliament at the next election. He won't be missed. His stint as Health Secretary, where he pursued lockdowns, mask mandates and vaccine tyranny, was like a 2-year-long Bush-Tucker trial for the British people. Good riddance. Harry and Meghan shocked the world with their Netflix documentary, which dropped on Thursday. This self-indulgent ego marathon made the films Cats and The Hangover 3 seem almost enjoyable by comparison. Johnny Johnson, the last surviving member of the Dam Busters raid, has sadly died this week. What a hero. And his extraordinary courage, humility and self-sacrifice provides a stark contrast to that millionaire couple currently crying about their lives in California. EU Commission head Ursula von der Leyen has said that Britain's complex historic relationship with Ireland is similar to the Russian invasion of Ukraine. As someone of Irish heritage, yes, you can ask me where I'm really from, what a deeply offensive and tone-deaf remark that is to make. With someone like von der Leyen in charge, it's another reason to be thankful that we're out. Von der Leyen needs a von der lie down. Good news, Britain is to build its first coal mine in 30 years. This will create 500 jobs, and the coal produced will serve our excellent steel industry. So let's drill for the rest. With 20 years of shale, 30 years of oil and gas, and up to 100 years of coal beneath our feet, perhaps energy independence beckons after all. Meanwhile, a top union boss has taken his colleagues out for a boozy drink-up amid a toxic climate of industrial unrest. There they are, having a great time. They don't go on strike when they're at a pub, do they? Now that's my diary of the week. Helping me react to the big stories of the day is Ella Whelan, political commentator. Hi, Ella, how are you?
Hi, good, thanks, Mark. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you here. Where do we start? Matt Hancock, out of politics and probably into a well-paid career in showbiz.
It's definitely in line with his new desired career as a kind of celebrity to be able to put the spin on this. The idea that this has just been his decision, that he has, weighed up his options and actually decided that he prefers the limelight of reality TV. That's not what happened. We know that there was there was no confidence in him. We know that he was essentially pushed. This has been very well stage managed. But I wasn't a fan of I'm a Celebrity and I didn't watch him in it. I'm certainly not a fan of Matt Hancock. I can't see where he thinks this is going to go because as I understood it, he didn't exactly recuperate his any kind of public support. He was consistently voted to do horrible things, and then, he hasn't won the heart of the nation. People don't have that short memories. We haven't just forgotten that he was one of the orchestrators of one of the worst periods in recent British history.
Yeah, although there is a contradiction, isn't there? Because the people that really wanted lockdowns argue that he didn't lock down enough and he took his eye off the ball when it came to the care homes. But then the lockdown skeptics think that he was the lockdown hawk who caused all that economic damage and who was responsible for essentially a failed experiment to stop a virus. I mean, he can't be wrong on both counts, can he?
Well, I think he maybe can. It's probably a bit of column A and a bit of column B, which is that we know that so much of the way through the pandemic, if you cast your mind back to that awful time, was the government and politicians like Matt Hancock essentially feeling in the dark and choosing often the worst decisions. So, if you had there were in the beginning stages, at least I think most people understood that lockdown right back at that the start of March was perhaps something that had to happen until everyone understood what was going on. And that was the period in which some of the worst damage was done to those living in care homes who then died. And then later on, quite quickly, when it became clear that, for example, we knew this wasn't affecting certain sections of society, kids and younger people as much as older people, the idea that kind of shutting down the entirety of our lives, including making it illegal to sit on benches together in parks, probably wasn't sensible. The government then swung all the way into the other direction and went for that. So, I think also probably a lot of people just remember him being this kind of handsy creep in a cupboard with that woman who, again, at the end of I'm a Celebrity, they sort of, again, groped her backside on national television. You just think, please, I've seen too much of Matt Hancock's sex life to last me a lifetime. I think he's someone who has always liked to portray himself as a kind of celebrity politician. I kind of cast my mind back and was thinking of all the press conferences he did and how he just enjoyed them kind of too much at a really serious time. And so I think good riddance. I mean, I really can't point to any point in his political career and say it was a success.
No, Rishi Sunak, by the way, has had a very quiet week. Is he just busy being Prime Minister, do you think? Does he need to be more visible?
I don't think he's being busy being Prime Minister because there's nothing coming. We're in a kind of moment of a variety of crises, strikes and things like that, which we're going to come on to talk about, I'm sure. But also sort of serious economic crises, not just for those who are going on strike, but cost of living and energy prices and all the rest of it. And the government hasn't come out. Essentially, his time as Prime Minister so far has been kind of, he gave a speech in which he used the word muscular pragmatism. What does that mean? What does that mean? He's an arch technocrat, someone who I think just hopes that if you sort of keep an even keel, balance the books and basically do nothing, calmly that everything will be all right. He's not a mover and shaker. And whatever you want to say about Boris Johnson, he probably was too much of a mover and shaker, especially around the time in parties in Downing Street. But at least there was some kind of sense of a vision there with that 2019 manifesto. Now I think what does Rishi Sunak stand for? Your guess is as good as mine.
There you go. Well, look, we'll get to the big burning issues of the day. I've got good news, which is that England have equalised and Harry Kane has scored a penalty. So that World Cup dream is back on. Of course, it's England versus France in Qatar. And I'll keep you updated whenever there is any goal action. This show's perfect because you get lively political debate, plenty of entertainment as well. And you don't have to watch that boring football, but you do get the result. And we'll get reaction from Big Sam Allardyce straight after the game. So lots to get through. And next up, and it's a very important question, and it's all about the strikes. Should we have more sympathy for those currently on strike? See you shortly.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today. I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked. Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Welcome to Mark Dolan Tonight, which starts at the earlier time of 8 p.m. And we begin with the People's Hour, in which I take your video calls. Coming up, are Christmas songs naff? And is Prince Harry the real villain? But first, with cash-strapped Brits struggling with the cost of living, are public sector workers who are downing tools entitled to withdraw their labour? Should we have more sympathy for those going on strike? To debate this, let's speak to Zachary, first of all. Hi, Zachary.
Good evening, Mark.
Great to have you on the show.
Thank you.
I wonder whether the media narrative has been quite strongly against those going on strike. The bottom line is that they're struggling to heat their homes and pay their weekly supermarket bill, perhaps they're entitled to down tools.
Yes, and I was on 4 weeks ago. I was going to say, you introduced me as being in Leicester, which I do live there, but I'm on holiday in Sidmouth, Devon at the moment. And I just hope I can go home because I'm due to return on one of the RMT strike dates, so we'll see about that. And I did, in fact, whilst criticising various unions last time I was on, I did defend the right to strike as being a fundamental principle of a democracy, so I would never suggest that we shouldn't have the right to strike. But I was thinking about my own experience of this. I was a secondary school pupil in the mid-'80s when the teachers were going on strike. And at one point, I was on a 3-day week. It wasn't just the early 70s. It was a real experience for school children in the mid-'80s. And it occurred to me, the teachers never discussed it with us. They didn't explain why they were going on strike. They certainly never apologised. It was just accepted that was a part of our life. So in a sense, that's maybe coloured my experience of strikes and made me generally unsympathetic. But I also, when I was with you a few weeks ago, spoke about my concern that there was some greater purpose behind it. And politics, of course, was the answer. And David Oldroyd-Bolt, who was on at the time, suggested to me that the trade union movement is, of course, inherently political. And I knew that. The point I was making was that some of the statements that were being made by, in particular, the head of the Royal College of Nursing, and, of course, our friend Mick Lynch, suggested to me that this was about fomenting political unrest. Maybe unrest is too strong a word, but when one sees strike after strike that seems to be in a coordinated manner, and now we have apparently Mr. Lynch suggesting that he should be entitled to go and see the Prime Minister. Surely the Transport Secretary is well qualified to deal with this. I do struggle to have any sympathy. And to bring it back to a phrase that Mr. Lynch is fond of using, working people. It used to be hard-working families, but it's broadened to working people. Well, I'm a working person, and I don't ask for a lot to go to the football, an occasional holiday. These are the riches of the poor for many working people. And to have these unions potentially deprive people of that in the name of ostensibly their unions, the union members' rights, but the way it's broadened to working people generally, where working people aren't consulted about it, they're just left to deal with it. How can I have any sympathy for them when they're threatening my very journey home from this holiday that I've worked all year and look forward to?
Oh, you raise a fair point. Let's speak to Susan now. Hi, Susan. Welcome to the People's Hour. I look forward to hearing your views on this.
I've always thought that there are certain sections that shouldn't be allowed to strike because of the services that they provide are to do with people's lives. But having said that, I do think they should be paid a very good wage. Obviously, nobody can keep having inflation-proof rises because that fuels inflation. But they should have a good pay grade. And the nurses' pay has been a subject for years and years. I mean, I can go back to the 1970s when I went to book the church for my wedding, and the vicar there, he didn't charge nurses because he said they were so low paid. And that was around 1976. So it's been going on for years and years. But the other thing is, when you go into the NHS, you know what the pay grades are. And I know there's a cost of living crisis at the moment, but we all have to make sacrifices. Everybody's got to make sacrifices. You can't keep putting your hands out for more money. And as I say, there's certain sections that I don't think should strike. And I think that the Prime Minister should get on with the minimum service legislation that he keeps talking about.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Let's bring Ella in if we can, Susan. We've got Ella Whelan, who's our political commentator. We've got Zachary and we've got Susan. So let's get her view. OK, yeah, Ella, what do you think about this?
Well, the word I wouldn't use the word sympathy. I'd probably use the word solidarity, because I think, as Zachary is right, it's hard to have sympathy, even if you do support strikes, when your day is getting screwed up or you're being put out. And I think most people know that strikes are only effective when they're disruptive. So essentially they have to upset people in order for them to work. Otherwise, you wouldn't have any clout when you were going to your employer to show them that your removal of your labour makes waves, makes a difference. But the reason why I think it's important to have solidarity with the strikers is because actually I think that there are two levels to this. On the one hand, there is the individual workers in those industries, whether it's a nurse, someone working for Royal Mail, someone working for the railways, who is banding together with their fellow employees and saying, we have to get better conditions in our employment, or we have to get a better wage, or whatever it is specific to that industry. That's obviously what strikes are mainly about. But I think there is an important second layer going on, which might link to what I think Zachary was sort of hinting that he might be worried about, which is the political level of it, which actually I wish there was more of, which is that I think if we did have a more coordinated kind of protest and strike action, it would put pressure on the government to give up this fallacy, this kind of pretense that it is all our fault, that the reason we're in a cost of living crisis is just, because that's the way it is, and we all have to kind of pull ourselves together and tighten our belts to right the ship. And I think we really should reject that. That's a nonsense. So much of the policy making and the decisions that the government has taken in the last sort of 4 or 5 years, particularly around the pandemic, particularly even around things like energy policy. It hasn't just been a crisis made by either coronavirus or the war in Russia, the war in Ukraine that Russia caused. That this is something that has to be laid at the feet of the government, and they have to answer to it. So a little bit of public pressure in the form of strikes, coordinated or not, I think is to be welcome. That's why I stand in solidarity with them, even if I don't always have the greatest sympathy for.
Susan, briefly, if you can, you're Prime Minister now, we can but dream. How would you deal with this winter of discontent? What would you say to the rail workers, the nurses, the civil servants and the others?
Well, I'd get them all around the table and I'd ask them to put down specifically what they want and start negotiating with them, because as far as I know, there hasn't been an awful lot of negotiating. And we're in the worst time of the year for all the strikes because, like Zach was saying, he can't guarantee that it can get home. But my main worry is the medics, the ambulance drivers, the nurses. And what I would say to them is if they go on strike, there is a strong possibility that people are going to lose their lives because they're not at their stations. And at the end of the day, you're actually putting a price on somebody's life. If you are not there at your place of work where you should be and someone dies, that I would say that is going to be on their conscience, and that would draw down to you put a price on someone's life. So that's my main concern is the medics going on strike. If our Christmas cards don't turn up or our parcels don't turn up, okay, you're disappointed, but it's not going to affect you for a long time. If you can't catch a train to see someone, again, you're disappointed, but it's not the end of the world. But with the medics on strike, it could end up with it being the end of the world for some people. And that's what I think they really need to think about. And the Prime Minister needs to start looking at the pay grades and start giving them decent pay rises so we don't get in this position where they feel so bad that with their pay that they want to strike. But I've also thought to myself that it is political because there's so many different people across the different boards are going on strike. And I saw all this in the 70s and it brought the Heath government down. We went through the miners' strike and we had blackouts, we had power cuts, we had the industrial 3-day week, there was bodies in the street. This strike that we're seeing now is nothing compared to the 70s, absolutely nothing. But that doesn't mean to say that they haven't got a good reason to ask for a pay rise. But I seriously wish the medics would think again.
You make a series of very compelling points. The clock's against us, Zachary, but what would you say to a public sector worker who's relying on food banks at the moment that is on strike?
I'd be very sympathetic to that person, but I would perhaps encourage that person to recognise that withdrawal of labour as a negotiating method is not the right way. It has to be talking, as Susan suggested, to bring out something that's going to suit both sides. And yes, it's tragic that people are turning to food banks. But this has been a problem for some time. It's not been brought about in this current inflationary crisis. And I don't believe this wave of strikes is going to deal with food bank use and the problems that lead to it. So I would encourage that person to recognise that withdrawal of labour can't be the answer.
Zachary, Susan and Ella, a fascinating conversation. Next up, is Harry the real villain when it comes to the Harry and Meghan saga? Is this a crisis of his own making? We're also going to talk about Christmas songs. Are they naff? Don't go anywhere. See you in 2.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions. I have no time for cultural totalitarianism. We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me! And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Mark Dolan Tonight and the People's Hour, in which I'm taking your video calls. Now, let me bring you up to date with the football. It's England versus France, and it's 1-1. And Harry Kane has equalised. I will keep you, of course, updated on any goal action, and we will get reaction live on the programme straight after with Big Sam Allardyce, former England manager. Coming up, our Christmas songs naff. But first, there's been a huge focus on the role of Meghan Markle in the royal drama, including last night's show with America's top psychiatrist, Dr. Carol Lieberman, who was not pulling her punches.
And this new Netflix documentary, which I suffered through for 3+ hours, getting more nauseous and more drowsy as it went on. She is very dangerous. You know, she's already proven that she's very dangerous. What her one goal in life is to get as much attention as she can, and she doesn't care who she destroys in the process.
I think Dr. Carol gets a Mark Dolan Tonight mic drop for that. There you go. We do need a microphone because I'm risking the bloody iPhone every time I do that. Now, amidst the focus on this one young woman, are we letting Harry off the hook? After all, it's his family and his relationship to the monarchy which are central to the story. And none of this needed to happen if he didn't want it to. So is Harry the real villain? Let's debate that with Adik and Sue. Let's start with Adik. Hi, Adik. How are you?
Good evening, Mark. Good evening, Ella. Nice to meet you again.
It's great to have you back on the show. Look, there's been a lot of focus on whether Meghan Markle has been the victim of racism. We don't have to go there again. But maybe, Adik, she's the victim of sexism. That she's this, you know, evil stepmother who's kind of basically stolen Harry from our clutches, and we're letting Harry off the hook.
I will borrow Ella's lack of sympathy word. I don't have sympathy to any of them. And it's very, very complex, obviously. It is easy to look aside and just comment what's happening somewhere else. The family, however, is the face of Britain. It's the wrapping of Britain. I want my wrapping to be shiny and beautiful. What is happening now? The wrapping of Britain is being torn into pieces, and people judging our country by what is happening in the royal family. The royal family is the cherry on the top of Britain. Meghan Markle herself, when she married Prince Harry, I don't think she had in mind that she's going to bring down the family of the royal family, which is, I agree with Dr. Carol Lieberman. She is a very dangerous person. She sends blood, she sends weakness, and she will do anything to progress to her goal. However, she definitely, when she married, it was not on her agenda. Who will do that? However, there is some matters that we don't know deep in the family that, to me, it looks like that Harry takes Meghan Markle as a shield, as a solace of something that is very, very deep, and he is standing behind her, something is covering. We know about, I just basically say what's the deep issues in the family is. There are differences in Harry's appearance to Prince William, differences in voices, in the way he speaks, the way his voice is, and there is a gap of intelligence. It's absolutely obvious something is going inside the family. Beside that, all the mental health issues that Harry is discussing, which is, of course, is important, but you don't wash your dirty laundry in the public and in the public of Britain, in the world. That's bizarre. And let's think about that. He was a pilot. He flew Apache helicopter. Would a person with mental health issues be allowed to actually fly a helicopter? The issues and basically the issues here as it come along, there's something that in Harry permitted it to happen. I don't know if it's actually driving it, but it definitely agrees with it and takes and stands behind Meghan to allow this agenda to happen. So it's a snowball that are really concerned that it become worse and worse and worse if it's not stopped. Meghan Markle is a very capable woman, that's for sure. She has a lot of skills, but unfortunately, she does not use them for good faith. She takes it to own agenda, and she can sense blood, she can sense weakness, because it's only me, doesn't care about British public, doesn't care about the monarchy, doesn't care about anything. And that's very disturbing. And as a British national and all the British people, it's very insulting. It's not a regular family. It's not even a family of a celebrity. It's the most known family probably in the whole world. And the current climate, probably people look at them for some solace, for some comfort with all the difficulties. And we don't have it even from looking at someone that's supposed to be glamorous. It's all gone. It's very disturbing, and there are a lot of issues there that it's not clear what they are, but I'm concerned that Harry, I don't know if it's supporting her, he definitely allowing it to happen, because he is not bystander. That's guaranteed.
Fascinating. Let's speak to Sue now and get Sue's view on this, because, again, they're focusing on Meghan Markle, but are we letting Harry off the hook? I mean, after all, he's the man, he's the husband, it's his family and it's his country, Sue.
Well, I think it's very clear that Meghan is the one in charge in that marriage, and Harry isn't. I don't think Harry's being let off the hook. I think the thing with Harry is a very needy person. He doesn't seem to have grown up mentally, even though he has physically, because I think he still hates the press the same as he did when he was a little boy, licking his tongue out at them and things when Diana had to tell him off. And I think he hasn't accepted Diana's death very well. He blames the media for that. And he won't accept that the reason his mum died was because she got a drunk driver and she wasn't wearing a seatbelt. If she'd had a seatbelt on, she'd probably still be with us today. And I think Meghan did have a plan before she married him. She had no intention of living here, permanently. She just took the fantastic wedding she had. She knew at that time anyway that the people of Britain took her to the heart. And I personally didn't even know she was mixed race, because she's not black. She's more white than she is mixed in the mixed race element. And from what I can understand, she always put Caucasian on her passport and stuff before she came here. So I don't see why she's calling Britain racist. And I think the king I don't think he can take away his prince. And I don't think he should take away the Duchess and Duke and Duchess element. But I think he could take away the HRH properly instead of just asking them not to use it. And he could take away the two other titles that Harry's got, which is the Earl of Dumbarton and the Baron of Kilkeel. So that would leave him only as the Duke and Duchess of Sussex.
Sussex.
And I also think, and I think also the king ought to let the people in the palace who are his staff leave them free to tell their stories about the way they were treated by Meghan while she was there.
OK, well, let's bring Ella Whelan in if we can, and we'll also return to Adik as well, because it is a very, very heated debate, this one. Is Harry being let off the hook? Is he the real villain, is what we're asking. Ella, I'm trying to establish a bit more focus away from Meghan towards Harry, but I'm fighting a losing battle. All roads seem to lead to Meghan.
Well, maybe you could take it, and women could take it as a compliment that, we're always seen to be the one in the driving seat. But I see what you're trying to do, Mark, and I think there probably is a point to the fact that there has been this hate campaign around Meghan. I mean, not that she doesn't kind of, in some ways, warrant it, because the very kind of American sort of cringy, needy, bare your soul kind of element to the Oprah interview and to this Netflix documentary and to the kind of the constant cries of please won't everyone leave me alone, but also watch my $1 billion documentary is pretty sickening. And I think most people are probably pretty sick of hearing her whinge on various podcasts and things like that about how beaten down she is in beautiful dresses and, the very nice life she has. But it is true that it's Harry's family and his country. And I mean, as somebody who wants to see an end to monarchy, I love the pair of them because I think the kind of continuous catastrophizing that they're doing is hopefully making some people in the UK ask whether or not we need and we want a monarchy if they are basically shaping up to be a kind of dysfunctional family to rival the Kardashians in this sort of way. I mean, Addict said that Meghan Markle has no love for this country and doesn't care about it. But, I mean, why should she? She was an American actress who, I'm sure she knew what she was getting into when she married a prince, but she doesn't necessarily have to have any loyalty to the idea of, the institution of the monarchy. And I think, the point I would make is that if it is the case that we're watching these people like celebrities on Netflix, we're, debating whether or not they get this or that title or this or that cottage, I think it's time for some bigger questions about the future of the monarchy and whether or not they actually just equal what Addict described as pretty shiny wrapping. I think we could probably do, particularly in relation to the climate crisis, let's do away with all the nice wrapping.
Let me bring you up to date on the football. England have been awarded a penalty. Harry Kane took it. Unfortunately, he did not hit the target. He missed. So it's still France 2, England 1, with just a few minutes left in the game to go. So not looking fantastic for England at the moment, but we've got our fingers crossed that they can equalise in the minutes that remain. We've only got a couple of minutes on this left, so I'm going to put a blunt question to all three of you. I'll start with you, Addict. How long do you give this marriage?
I think the marriage actually can last because Meghan is a cover for Harry, whatever the reason is. And unless his issues are addressed within the family, which is a kind of hinted what they are, might be, he's always going to use her. It's deeper issue, the rivalry, whatever the reason within the family, and he needs the cover. He's not brave enough to face it by himself. As long as he feels he needs cover, he's going to use her. And I don't think the issues are so deep, he's going to continue using her, so he is benefiting from her.
OK, so potentially it goes all the way. How long do you give it, Sue?
5 to 8 years.
Lovely. I know that you're a bookkeeper and an accountant. You're very good with numbers. Ella, do you even feel comfortable answering that question?
I wish them all the best, and I wish that they'd just keep it to themselves and we stop talking about the pair of them.
Yeah, well, I'll split the difference. I give it 6.5 years, but I hope I'm wrong, and I wish the couple well, just like all three of us, all four of us do. Sue, Addict, brilliant stuff. We'll bring you back shortly to talk about whether Christmas songs are naff. We'll discuss that next.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Dubes & Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Dubes & Kerr.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store? You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
From 9, in my big opinion, I'm a lifelong devoted fan, but Elton John's decision to leave Twitter tells you everything you need to know about the privileged elite and their attitude to free speech. In my take at 10, the Royal Mail have warned that Christmas cards may not arrive until February. Rishi Sunak's got to get a grip. Plus my all-star panel, tomorrow's papers, and the latest on Harry and Meghan from the Queen of US Royal Reporting, Kinsey Schofield, live from Hollywood, California. That's Mark Dolan tonight on GB News.
Welcome back to the show. It is Mark Dolan tonight and the People's Hour, in which I'm taking your video calls. Lots to get through. After 9, I'll be calling out Elton John's rank hypocrisy, as you've seen in that trailer. And in my big opinion, we'll also be looking at quite a big story, really, and it's the post workers who are going on strike. It might be that your Christmas cards do not arrive until February. Crazy stuff. Now, one of the best or worst aspects of Christmas, depending on who you're talking to, is Christmas music. Whether it's White Christmas, Last Christmas, or I Wish It Could Be Christmas Every Day, these tunes dominate our lives for about 3 or 4 weeks of every year. And their popularity does not wane. This week, pop superstar Mariah Carey once again hit #1 with her iconic hit, All I Want for Christmas. So what do we think about these Christmas songs? Are we fond of them because they're familiar, or are they just dreadful? That's our final question in the People's Hour. Are Christmas songs naff? Let's speak to Andrew. Hi, Andrew.
Hi there, Mark. How are you doing today?
I'm very well. I love your esoteric background. It's either an expensive Jackson Pollock or you've got kids.
I don't have kids, no. So my view on this is actually the songs are really part of our culture. And even some of my admin staff who are half my age, and I'm 39, they really like listening to the music. It gets everyone in the mood. And with all the doom and gloom, we need to kind of have some kind of escapism. And I can even remember way back in 1994 buying the Mariah Carey song for a bargain price of 10p in Woolworths, because they hadn't even bought the case. They'd damaged the actual CD case. But it's one of those songs that brings back really fond memories. And also, Cliff Richard, he was #1 in Christmas when I was 5 years old. And even some of my, 18, 19-year-old admin staff are like, oh, yeah, we've heard of that. Are you really, do you really remember it that well? And also, who can ignore the fact that, one of my hero group, Steps, they were #1 at Christmas, Heartbeat, Tragedy. They really did enough to kind of have that feel-good factor. And also, you know, going back to 1995, you know, Stay Another Day. And I think actually, you know, we need something to give us strength. There's, you know, a lot going on in the world that, you know, the striking is, you know, is causing lots of issues. I mean, I've had post come first class that's taken like over 2 weeks. But I actually think the music and being able to stream it live, say, for example, like I downloaded, you know, Hard to Forget, you know, the Steps song on my iPhone. And, you know, it really put me in a good mood. And, you know, these days we can stream and we're able to kind of have that ability to connect. But of course, by the same token, I'm very upset that, you know, the Top of the Pop show has been axed for this year at Christmas.
I know.
And also some of the artists I mentioned, obviously, you know, the wonderful Dan Wootton, whose show I watch every weekday, Monday to Thursday, he wrote review on some of these back in the day, you know, the showbiz paper. And, you know, you've got that fond memory and having that kind of comfort. I think actually we do need it. And I mean, I would love for Steps to re-release, you know, Heartbeat and Tragedy again, you know, so it gets to number one, hopefully. But, you know, Mariah Carey's song, I like it. You know, it's familiarity. And my dad liked her song, you know, as well. And love it. I think actually, yeah, it's got that familiarity. And for many people on the autism spectrum, I talked about a little bit about autism before, having that familiarity and routine, it's actually a way of coping.
I completely agree, and I think these songs are a bit cheesy, but they have been recorded by some of the greatest artists in the world, including Paul McCartney, Bob Geldof, you name it. So really briefly, please name-check your favourite Christmas song.
I would have to say Mistletoe and Wine.
There you go. What a great one. It's Christmas time, mistletoe and wine. Right, I'll stop because I don't want to lose viewers. Let's get everyone in boxes and we're just going to power around the group. And by the way, I've loved the People's Hour tonight. Loved having Ella Whelan as well. OK, Sue, your favourite Christmas song?
Which Sue?
Sue, forgive me. Young Sue, could you tell me your favourite Christmas song?
Oh, Slade, Merry Christmas, everyone. You can't beat it. It gets everybody up on the dance floor and it gets you in the mood for Christmas. It's brilliant. The 70s
great shout.
was the golden era.
Good shout. Attic?
I apologise. It's Wham! Last Christmas.
Never apologise for George Michael. Sue?
I'm with the other chap, Andrew. Mistletoe and Wine by Cliff.
Children singing Christian rhyme with logs on the fire. How about you? Last but not least, Zachary.
It's Pretenders 2,000 Miles because it's wonderful at any time of year. It's not just a Christmas song. It works any time of year.
Brilliant stuff. Whelan, do your worst. Who is your favourite Christmas artist? What's your favourite Christmas song?
It has to be Fairy Tale of New York. I can't believe anyone hasn't said that.
And do you go for the X-rated original version?
I do, but not because of it. Because it's a homophobic
But you don't
slur.
believe in editing art
I
or
don't believe in
rewriting
editing
it?
And if you're Irish, Dylan, like you are, you know that that's not what that word means.
Well, look, talking about pop culture and music, I'll be dealing with the outrageous hypocrite Elton John next.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late-night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison? I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Lawrence Fox, on GB News. Frank, fun, fearless, and sometimes serious. Much as I love a Friday night punch-up, what I really want is a battle of ideas. I want to look at things differently. I want to hear different voices and engage with your unique experiences. Every Friday at 7 p.m. on GB News.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Welcome back to Mark Dolan tonight. It is exactly 9 o'clock and we've got a very busy 2 hours for you. In my big opinion, he is my hero, but I'll be calling out Elton John's outrageous double standards. Find out why shortly. In the big question, is Christmas overrated? Plus, we'll tackle the fallout from Harry and Meghan's documentary with the queen of US showbiz, royal and political reporting, Kinsey Schofield, and in the news agenda with my panel, South Koreans are all going to be a year younger as they scrap an age-old tradition. So, is age just a number? And a man got fined for feeding some ducks. Should we be feeding wild animals? Plus, tomorrow's papers live and uninterrupted at exactly 10:30. And in my take at 10, well, we've got an exciting story. It's about the postmen and postwomen and the fact that your Christmas card might not reach Granny or Auntie Susan until February. What's the point in that? Luckily, I've emailed Tatiana Sanchez her Christmas card and she's got the headlines.
Mark, thank you. This is the latest from the GB newsroom. At least 3 people have been killed in an explosion on the island of Jersey. The blast happened in a tower block of flats in the early hours of the morning in St Helier. It's feared the number of casualties could still climb, with around a dozen people thought to be still missing. Chief Fire Officer Paul Brown says the search and rescue operation could take days.
It is a total collapse. And so the primary challenge is that, one, it is dangerous to operate in and around the area, but secondly, anything that we do or don't do in the wrong way might then jeopardise the chances of survival for somebody who might yet be able to be, sort of rescued. So we have to do everything in a slow, methodical way, and we have to make sure that all of the right equipment with the right expertise is in place in order to do that.
Well, breaking news for you. It's France who have made it through to the World Cup semi-finals after beating England 2-1. Well, France now face Morocco next, which became the first African nation to make it through to the semi-finals after beating Portugal 1-0 earlier today. Energy regulator Ofgem says it's extremely concerned that vulnerable people in Sheffield have been without gas for a week. Hundreds of customers were left without heating after a water main burst last Friday, saturating the gas network. Ofgem has described the situation as extremely difficult, made worse by the sudden cold snap. Distribution company Cadent says all affected homes and commercial properties will be automatically compensated. Meanwhile, freezing temperatures have been causing travel problems across the country. Manchester Airport was forced to temporarily close both runways after heavy snow, affecting dozens of flights. Yellow warnings are in place across Scotland, Northern Ireland, Wales, the southwest and southeast of England this weekend, with temperatures expected to drop to as low as -10 degrees in some isolated areas. Meanwhile, the RMT General Secretary Mick Lynch has called for an urgent meeting with the Prime Minister. It's to try to resolve the long-running dispute over paying conditions for rail workers. Union members are due to stage 2 48-hour strikes next week, following months of industrial action over the deadlocked row. TV, online and DAB+ radio. This is GB News. Now it's back to Mark Dolan tonight.
My thanks to Tatiana, who returns in an hour's time. So there you have it. I'm afraid England are out of the World Cup. I'm absolutely devastated. I'm gutted for those wonderful players. It broke my heart when Wales exited the tournament, and now Harry and his army are out as well. But they performed very well and roll on the Euros. Welcome to Mark Dolan tonight. In my big opinion, I'm a huge fan, but I'll be calling out Elton John's outrageous hypocrisy. Find out why in just a moment. Can Prince Harry ever repair his relationship with his brother William? We'll get the views of the Queen of US showbiz, royal and political reporting. A very good friend of mine, Kinsey Schofield, live from Hollywood, California. In the big question, is Christmas overrated? We'll hear from both sides on that one. And in the news agenda with my panel, is age just a number? And after a man got fined for feeding some ducks, is it wrong to give food to wild animals? To debate that and all of the big stories of the day is my animalistic all-star panel of X Factor singer and legal researcher Katie Waisel, Apprentice star and entrepreneur Ryan Mark Parsons, and former Liberal Democrat MP and now filmmaker Lembit Opik. Steven Spielberg, eat your heart out. Plus, tomorrow's paper's live and uninterrupted at exactly 10:30. And in my take at 10, the scandal of the Christmas cards that may not arrive until February. What's the point in that? Lots and lots to get through, but let's start with this. I'm a huge fan of Elton John. I've idolised him since I was about 11 years of age. I consider him to be a total musical genius, easily up there with Lennon and McCartney, if not better. He's a global beacon for gay rights, and his legacy touches everything, from the fight against AIDS to Watford Football Club, and he's currently on stage in the Farewell Yellow Brick Road tour, which is the biggest grossing tour on the planet as we speak. Not bad for a man aged 75, but let's be honest, he still plays like a teenager. One of the great things about this man is his focus on creating the greatest music the world has ever heard, in playing the piano brilliantly, and in fighting for causes about which he's passionate. But he's never been political, which is why it's a huge disappointment to me to see him announce his departure from the social media platform Twitter. Here's what he had to say. He tweeted, "All my life I've tried to use music to bring people together. Yet it saddens me to see how misinformation is now being used to divide our world. I've decided to no longer use Twitter, given their recent change in policy, which will allow misinformation to flourish unchecked." Now, I do like the rather dry response from new Twitter owner Elon Musk, who replied with the following. He said to Elton, "I love your music. I hope you come back. Is there any misinformation in particular that you're concerned about?" And of course, there's no answer to that. Elton John has a heart the size of Texas, and he's incredibly clever and informed as well. But his remarks about misinformation are a misjudgment. As we've learned throughout the pandemic and throughout history for that matter, many things labelled misinformation at the time often turn out to be the truth. There was a time when people claiming the Earth was round were imprisoned, tortured and even killed. But the last time I checked, our lovely planet is a perfect circle. Challenging orthodoxies has good historic precedent, which is why it's such good news that Elon Musk is restoring free speech to Twitter, which for many has now become the digital town square, a marketplace of ideas and opinion where all issues can be debated. The problem with the word misinformation is who decides what that means? Early in the pandemic, it was misinformation to suggest COVID may have come from a lab in Wuhan. Now, it's a highly likely scenario. At the time, it would have got you cancelled. And don't forget that many people were taken off Twitter for suggesting that COVID came from a lab. It was considered heresy in many quarters to argue that lockdowns might ultimately kill more people than COVID, or that masks or school closures were hopelessly ineffective and needlessly damaging. These views may have been right, they may have been wrong, but they have their place. I would argue history is proving heretical lockdown skeptics right. In Elton's utopia, there would have been no such free discourse at a time when our lives were being drastically changed through government policy. Now, Joe Biden said, if you have the vaccine, you won't get COVID. He said, if you have the vaccine, you won't spread it. Both statements have turned out to be palpably untrue. They are false. So was that misinformation? You tell me. Do you see the problem? And I've got to say, Elton's decision to leave Twitter is symptomatic of the privileged elite who are happy to perpetuate any given narrative and crush opinions with which they disagree. Not only is Elton John one of the very greatest artists in the world, he's one of the greatest artists in history, but he has benefited from living in a country with a free, open culture where he could express himself in his personal life as a proud gay man and through his music with edgy songs like The Bitch Is Back and I Think I'm Going to Kill Myself, which would be banned or censored in radical regimes. I love Elton, and I always will. He was my specialist subject on Mastermind, for God's sake. 11 questions, 11 right answers. What a saddo I am. But this move smacks of virtue signalling, and it goes against that which any artist should stand for, which is freedom of expression. And if there are some dreadful people on Twitter who have unpalatable opinions, fair enough. Well, look, the public can read that stuff and they can dismiss it and expose it to scrutiny. But it's all rock and roll. The best possible example that I can give to Elton about why he's wrong on this one is the journalist Alex Berenson, permanently suspended by Twitter for highly controversial tweets about the COVID-19 vaccine. Very, very controversial tweets. Berenson took Twitter to court and he sought to reverse that ban. Well, he was able to show the judge that every single tweet was based on official US government data. In other words, he was publishing official statistics for which he got cancelled. Now, I think, Elton, that you'll agree official government statistics are not misinformation, but are in fact information, and information the public needs to see. The judge threw out the case and upheld his claim, and he was reinstated to the platform. What about one of the greatest medics on the planet, Professor Jay Bhattacharya at the University of Stanford? This is not a guy who's like a nutter in his grandmother's bedroom, but a revered figure of science, who, it's been revealed this week, was censored by Twitter for calling out the dangers of COVID measures. It's the world's greatest doctor who was cancelled by Twitter. His tweets against school closures were restricted so they couldn't be seen by more people. This great man was on a blacklist. Do you want that kind of censorship, Elton? That's my question. Because that's what the founder of SpaceX, Elon Musk, is trying to eliminate. So that a revered figure like Bhattacharya, a rock star in his own right, can add to a crucial debate. So right now, it's Elton versus Elon. How ironic that the Rocket Man should fall out with the Rocket Man. It is Saturday night, and it's all right for fighting, especially with Elton John, because for the first time in his career, on this one, he's horribly out of tune. I'd like to invite Elton John to debate that with me on this show. You know the email, Elton, mark@gbnews.uk. I'd love to have your views as well. Let me know your thoughts on Elton John's decision to leave Twitter. Reacting to that and all of the big stories of the day, we have my panel of X Factor singer and legal researcher Katie Waisel, Apprentice star and entrepreneur Ryan Mark Parsons, and former Lib Dem MP Lembit Opik. Lembit, let me start with you. You are a Liberal Democrat or an ex-Liberal Democrat, so you believe in freedom, don't you, and freedom of speech?
I totally agree. And I have to say, the whole Twitter thing, the whole Facebook thing is crazy. We are allowed to say things that those social networks allow. How can that be like free speech? When it comes down to it, and in my view, this is the core question, are we allowed to say things which the social networks allow, or are we allowed to say things which are uncomfortable but not illegal? I seem to feel now that, based on your amazing monologue, we're in a situation now where that we are self-censoring. And also, if you don't follow that, then you end up in a situation where you will be censored anyway. And I think that the bottom line here is Elton John made a silly decision. I'd let him say it, but I'd speak to him. But you can't have that debate because one person or the other gets censored.
Yes, Katie Waisel, you may have brushed shoulders with Elton John in your singing career. A great artist, but I think he's got this one wrong. What's your view?
I mean, all I can think about is that he didn't go into too much information about what the misinformation was. So I'm not here to say whether he was right or wrong about it. It's like you said, it's a platform of freedom of speech, and everyone's allowed or entitled to say what they should wish, which I don't believe should be the case. If we take a look at what Kanye West has been saying, it's an absolute atrocity. It's disgusting and disturbing, to be very frank. And I think that there has to be a line that's drawn as to what is, constituted as legal, per se.
Well, yes, and of course, Kanye has been banned by Twitter under the management of Elon Musk. But the point is, Katie, and you're training to be a lawyer, you need to hear both sides of every argument, don't you? And we saw there great medics like Jay Bhattacharya cancelled and silenced by Twitter under the old management. But now we've got new management that wants to restore free speech to these great figures, and Elton scarpers.
Not necessarily in that very moment. I mean, if we take a look at what Elon is doing, he's actually baiting and, it depends on how somebody wants to read what Elon Musk's response was or direct tweets to Elton John was. But you yourself had just mentioned that, in a very kind of dry way, he said, well, I'd like to learn more. We don't always have to air what's going on very publicly.
But if something's misinformation, you grab the tweet and you go, look at this rubbish, that's a lie. What you don't want, Katie, is you don't want... just one moment, Lembit. You don't want a hoodie-wearing billionaire in Palo Alto, California, deciding what is or is not misinformation. You take my point, Katie, about the flat earthers. Scientists who said the Earth was round were jailed and sometimes tortured.
Right. But he hasn't stated what the misinformation is. There is a lot of misinformation on Twitter. I'm on Twitter every day. I'm part of these live spaces. I speak to the general public. I listen. I take part in these much-needed conversations and very transparent conversations. But he hasn't stated anything other than that there is misinformation. And how many users are there on Twitter? Billions.
Well, Ryan Mark Parsons, I don't think that Elton likes the politics of Elon Musk. He's not happy that Donald Trump is back on there. He doesn't like the fact that, perhaps a few conservative commentators have had their accounts restored. That's my guess, reading between the lines.
Yeah, a lot of these woke celebrities are taking a stance, and they all claim to be very morally righteous, and they just make these grandiose statements on Twitter for likes and retweets, and that's all it is. It's all very superficial, and I think they need to shut up, to be honest with you, quite frankly. They just moan, a bit like what we're seeing with Meghan and Harry. These millionaires, privileged individuals just like to moan. They're professional whiners, and they need to button it. To be honest with you, I think Twitter is going through a healing process. Elon Musk just announced a new feature where you can actually see your account status to know if you are shadow banned or not. And I think it is actually improving under Elon Musk's management. So I'm seeing great things.
Shadow banning in the first place.
Well, exactly, but that's what was happening under Jack Dorsey. But under Elon Musk, I see great change happening. And that is the fun of social media. I use Twitter. I'm a user of Twitter for the discourse. There should be contention. There should be contentious opinions expressed on Twitter for people to debate. Otherwise, what is the point of social media?
I agree with you on that,
I don't
but
see
where's
the point.
I agree, I 100% agree, but there has to be a line drawn between, hate speech and it's even in policies, law and legislation. There has to be a line that's drawn, and then the people in the back end...
But Katie, I actually agree with Ryan, which surprises me, because I thought I'd disagree with him. When it comes down to it, I think you should be able to say whatever the heck you want. And the public are not so stupid as to make the wrong decision.
So why is there law and legislation that basically says that you can't, about hate speech and stuff like
because
this?
Because we think the public are stupid, Katie. We think the public are stupid.
But obviously you can still legislate. Anything that's illegal on Twitter will be removed.
And
that's
already
the problem.
no one's got a problem with that.
It's not removed. No one's even in the office. They've all been fired. No one can...
I lost my job largely as an MP due to libel. And I accepted I could have been litigious. But these days, I'm a lot more litigious, but I'm actually less inclined to sue because, as Ryan implies, and Katie, the reason I disagree with you is because the public can make the judgment. Matt Hancock, classic example.
OK, well, look, it's a rich debate. We'll return to that at 10:30 because Elton is in the papers tomorrow. We're always ahead of the game here on Mark Dolan tonight, so do join us for the papers with the panel at 10:30. Coming up, we've got more reaction to Harry and Meghan with Kinsey Schofield. Big Sam Allardyce live on the programme in a couple of minutes, reacting to England's very sad departure from the World Cup. They lost to France 2-1. But next up in the big question, is Christmas overrated? We'll hear from both sides. Don't go anywhere.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prisons? I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents. Whether you're with us on TV, radio or online, every morning it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Look, you're not pulling your punches with Elton John, who was the topic of my big opinion monologue. I think he's a musical genius. I've loved him since I was 11, but he's left Twitter, and I think it's a big mistake. I think it's an example of the millionaire elite trying to crush the opinions of the normal public. Let's have a look at this. From Gordon. Hi, Mark. Sounds to me like Elton's after some publicity. Has he got a new movie coming out, perhaps? Also, this from Karen. Your monologue was great tonight, Mark. The best yet. Keep up the great work. Thank you, Karen. Antonio says, I love his music, but on Twitter he is wrong. Janet says, we know the reason he's shouting. He is seen today shaking hands with the Markles, who is, of course, they are friends of his. As for a great artist, he's no great artist. Keep him. I want better. There you go. Keep those opinions coming. Mark at gbnews.uk. Big Sam Allardyce coming up very shortly. He'll be reacting to the sad news that England are out of the World Cup. They lost 2-1 to France. But it's time now for this. It's time now for the big question, in which we tackle a major news story of the day. And this is big news. It's just 15 days till Christmas. Many are shopping, getting the tree ready and ordering turkeys. But some people hate Christmas. It reminds them of loved ones and friends that they've lost. And many people find it a lonely, expensive or stressful time of the year, with many family members squeezed together under one roof who clearly don't get on. Plus, the Christmas dinner can either be a triumph or a disaster, depending on who's cooking it. And does anyone like Christmas pudding? So tonight's big question is a simple one. Is Christmas overrated? To debate this, I'm delighted to welcome Christmas critic Venus O'Hara and Christmas superfan Charlie Bryan. Charlie, can I say you look fabulous? Is that your look all year round?
Mine, no. This is just for the time being. I'm raising money for charity.
Can I say you're quite a gorgeous elf?
Thank you.
You look fabulous. So listen, why do you like Christmas so much, Charlie?
I like the family time. I like the cosy nights in. I like the Christmas dinner. I like giving gifts. What's not to like, really?
OK. What about that turkey, though? It gets very boring, doesn't it? Because you've got turkey on Christmas Day, then you've got turkey sandwiches on Boxing Day. You've got turkey curry the day after that.
Well, we don't. We have a little bit of turkey, but we have other meats as well, so it doesn't get repetitive.
Take me through your day. How will you be celebrating Christmas?
So I'm usually up about 4, 5 o'clock in the morning.
4 in the morning?
Make sure everything's ready. I am making sure I'm up before my kids, yeah.
And listen, what are you doing at 4 or 5 in the morning? What exactly are you up to then?
Making sure I'm up before the kids are.
Sorry,
I'm more excited than them usually.
Yeah.
No one's opening any gifts without me present.
How many kids have you got?
4.
Oh, that will keep you busy, yeah. So obviously you love your Christmas. Venus O'Hara is with us, and you are a Christmas skeptic, I'm told.
Absolutely. Well, I opted out of Christmas many years ago. I actually live in Spain. So I'm British, but I live in Spain. So the Christmas energy or celebrations are very different here. For example, in the UK, it's all about the 25th, where in Spain, it's actually the 24th in the evening. So the first year I was here, I was thinking, oh, this doesn't mean anything to me. But that was the only night where the streets were deserted and everyone was with their family. All the restaurants were closed. And it was just such a lonely feeling. And so I opted out of Christmas many, many years ago. And I think it depends on your personal situation. I know for me, I'm child-free, I'm single, and I'm far away from family. So I think it's a time when you kind of... Also, I've been a workaholic for many years. Not now, I'm more balanced, but sometimes if you're so into your work, you look at Christmas and it's kind of like you look at your personal life, maybe your social life, and if you don't like what you see, then Christmas can be a very hard time. But this year, I've actually changed my approach to it. So
what do you do? What do you do now on the 25th?
Well, I have a social group here in Barcelona called Barcelona Conscious Connections, and I'm organising a lunch, a Christmas lunch, a conscious Christmas lunch for a group of people. Many of us will be expats. And a lot of people in a similar situation, so they're very grateful for this opportunity. And also on the 24th, which is that very depressing day, or the time when all the Spanish people are with their families, I'll be helping the homeless. It's the first year I'm doing it, so I'm actually really looking forward to it, to actually do something. Because obviously you can wallow in self-pity, but there's always someone else who's worse off than you. So that's my approach this year. And I'm actually really looking forward to it. And I'm also looking forward to connecting with friends and having some time off. But there's no decorations in my place, as you can see. And I think in general, there are less decorations here in Spain, but there's still a lot of, it goes on for a long time here because they celebrate the Three Kings here on the 6th of January, so it's never ending.
Don't those images make you yearn for Christmas again, Venus?
Absolutely not, because I never go to the UK when it's cold. I always go in the summer. So this for me is kind of like, what I did love about Christmas though, was the EastEnders episode. It was always the big scandal, something really bad would be discovered on Christmas Day. So that's maybe my sadistic side or enjoyed that. But I mean, the TV was quite good. I mean, but that's about it really. I don't eat turkey or I'm a vegan, so so I prefer to be on the beach. I mean, I actually enjoy sending pictures of me on the beach on Christmas Day back to my family in the UK.
But do you not miss the mince pies, the carols, and Only Fools and Horses, or Mary Poppins?
Well, Only Fools and Horses, I'm very much connected to British TV still. I mean, that's something that I'm definitely connected with. Mince pies, not so much, but I'll be enjoying some other things here. I don't really like the Christmas sweet things, to be honest. I really miss jelly tots.
We might have to send you, we'll send you a consignment for next Christmas. Well, look, clearly strong views there from Venus O'Hara. Charlie, by the way, that footage of those houses and those decorations, is that your street?
No, sadly not.
Have you got any good decorations, like in the window, that the public can see? How far have you gone with the decorations? Your tree looks lovely.
Thank you. We've only just done the tree today, actually, and we've put a few bits and bobs outside. But we live in a cul-de-sac, so we don't get many people this way. So we generally just do the inside of the house.
All right. Well, it does look gorgeous. I love that tree. Is it real?
No, I wanted a real one, but they'd all ran out.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, look, that one will last for a few years. That's the good news. I always think, Charlie, it's quite sad when you see the trees on the street in early January. It's kind of like The Hangover, isn't it?
It's sad. Yeah. So I wanted one in a pot, but I couldn't get one. So we've gone with this one again this year.
Well, I think you've done a lovely job. I love your baubles. Let's bring my gorgeous panel in, if I can. We've got Ryan Mark Parsons, Katie Waitell, and Lembit Opik. And Lembit, you're well decorated at the best of times. Are you a Christmas fan?
I am actually a fan. My late mother loved Christmas, and I was thinking about this. In 1975, that was probably my best Christmas because I got the perfect Lego gift. I recognise that I see it as a kind of a social thing. In 2008, when she was getting on a bit, she died last year, but she had those extra 13 years, I bought her a fake Christmas tree, and she always used to have the real Christmas trees, but she used that 12 years in a row. And I have to say that it's not about the Christmas. You can talk about the philosophical or the theological elements of it. It's about getting together, and that's what I loved about Christmas.
Oh, that's lovely. What a happy memory. Ryan Mark Parsons, will you be celebrating on the 25th?
Yes, I'm actually coming here on the 25th as well. So,
so what
you
won't
be
then?
Well, kind of celebrating. No drinking during the day, but I'm a bit conflicted on Christmas. I do love the celebrations. I love seeing friends. I love the typical festivities, going out, Winter Wonderland, all of that stuff. But I don't like meeting the extended family. I find that Very painful around the Christmas
That's not about
table.
Christmas, it's about you.
No, I just find it excruciating asking me 100 million questions under the sun. I don't want to hear from you. They're all sycophantic. That puts me off. That puts me off Christmas.
You haven't been nice, you've been naughty.
Yeah, I've been very naughty, and Santa can punish me.
We talked about music earlier, Katie Waisel, but it's all about the Christmas dinner, isn't it, or the Christmas lunch?
Well, my son is 4.5, and so now I'm really like at that perfect time where everything is magical, and he is just loving every moment from opening the doors of the advent calendars to counting down when he is with Papa and Gigi for Christmas Day. And do you know what, really, just as to what you were saying about the traditions and the values that we instill in each other and the togetherness, he's also been collecting a donation pot, which we always give back to the Children's Hospice in our local area. And so it warms my heart that he's more and more understanding what it means and is excited to be a part of that. So
You know what, Katie? That makes me feel about myself and my co-panellist slightly ashamed.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, listen, it is...
Did we know it was Christmas time at all?
It is a wonderful gesture. Speaking of which, very, very quickly, if we can, Charlie, you are fundraising for a brilliant cause this year.
I am. Wishes for Kids. They're a really good charity that grant wishes to children 18 and under who are terminally ill, have life-limiting conditions, or have suffered severe trauma.
An incredible...
We're nearly 2,300 at the minute on the Just Giving page. So we're doing really well.
That's brilliant. So you can head to Just Giving and search up Wishes for Kids. So we got the website as well, haven't we, Charlie? wishesforkids.co.uk?
Yeah, and it's Charlie the Elf on Just Giving. Just
brilliant.
Google Charlie the Elf and I pop straight up.
Charlie the Elf on Just Giving, a perfect Christmas gift if you need inspiration to a brilliant cause. Merry Christmas, Charlie, to you and your 4 gorgeous kids and your other half, who I'm sure will still be asleep at 4 a.m. Also, what a treat to have Venus O'Hara on the show as well. Venus, enjoy the 25th. I know it's not a formal Christmas for you, but have a great day. Lots more to come. Don't forget, at 10 o'clock, it's My Take at 10, and I'll be dealing with postal workers who are going on strike. The bottom line is that your Christmas card may not reach its destination until February. What is the point in that? But next up, Big Sam Allardyce reacts to England's departure from the World Cup. See you shortly.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512,
Virgin Media Channel 604,
Freesat Channel 216,
Freeview Channel 236,
and YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio,
with the GB News app, and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Listen, I'll get to more of your emails shortly on Christmas. I do have a rather sobering one. It's from Anonymous, and it's, I am 74. I've spent 42 Christmases on my own, working, etc. I start to get depressed on December the 1st. By the 10th, I'm ready to jump off a building. By the 25th, I'm looking for a building. By January the 6th, I've rewritten my will again. Well, look, thank you for that rather grave but heartfelt message. England are out of the World Cup. They've been beaten 2-1 by France. Harry Kane equalised with a penalty, but it wasn't to be. Let's go straight to Qatar now, and our brilliant reporter and breakfast presenter, Paul Hawkins. Hi, Paul.
Hiya. Similar story, I'm afraid. One of heartache and drama, really. England very conservative in the first half, not really moving the ball with much urgency. France, good enough, although not fantastic. The goal, though, brilliant from France, a 17th minute drive from Choumani from the edge of the box. France going in 1-0 up at the break. England much better in the second half. 54th minute Harry Kane penalty, which he did put away after Bukayo Saka was fouled in the box. And England grew in authority through the game. That is until Olivier Giroud's 78th minute header. And then came the big moment that everyone's going to be talking about for weeks, frankly, and Harry Kane is going to have nightmares about. No wonder he was in tears at the end. England awarded a penalty after Mason Mount was fouled in the box, and Harry Kane, as reliable as he normally is, blasted it over the bar, and England went on to lose 2-1. France going through to that semi-final with Morocco, but for England, it's not coming home, they're going home.
Well, look, Paul, your coverage in Doha and in Qatar has been absolutely first class. I've loved your interactions with the fans. It's been great reporting. And let me put it on record that the best thing to come out of this tournament is your suntan. You look amazing.
Well, thank you very much for that. Yeah, so, I can't really take much credit for it, to be honest. I just stood around and didn't do much, to be honest. But thank you, Mark. Thank you. I appreciate that.
You kept us entertained, and you helped us tell Wales's and England's story during this competition. Look forward to seeing you back in the studio in the next few days. Paul Hawkins. Let's now speak to Big Sam Allardyce. Of course, one of the most experienced and successful managers of his generation. And Sam, disappointment all round. What went wrong, do you think, Gaffer?
Well, it's plain and simple. I think that you can't afford to miss the opportunities you create. And if you've got a penalty, you simply can't afford to miss it. And, of course, the most reliable penalty taker that we have in the team is the captain, Harry Kane. And unfortunately for him, Mark, the pressure was too much. I think that you can all say and look and say what happened there, but clearly the pressure got to Harry in the end, and it's enormous pressure because I reckon if it was 2-2, Harry would have scored it to take us through. But I think to bring us level at that stage, it was just a little too much for him pressure-wise, and got under the ball, skied it over the top. But a terrific performance, particularly in the second half by England. And they have matched the world champions. There's no doubt about that. In fact, bettered the world champions in the second half. So there's a lot to be positive about, even though we don't feel like it at the moment. And certainly the England team and the backroom staff will be very dejected on the back of they've matched and in the second half bettered France, who are the world champions at the moment.
Gareth Southgate has had a few good tournaments. He's taken England a fair way, but never quite crossed the line. Do you think that the FA will be looking for a new head coach, a new manager in the months ahead?
That will be determined by not just the FA, but the FA and Gareth themselves getting together. I think that they are definitely connected together and will come together and review the whole of the tournament at the end of it and say, where do we go from here? And I think that it would be more, for me, that Gareth would want to move on and let somebody else take over than it would be for the FA to actually look for somebody else. That's my feelings at the moment. And I think this camaraderie they have between themselves and the young talent that's in the squad, there's certainly the Euros to go for in a couple of years' time. So I'd be surprised if he's not carrying on for at least the next 2 years.
Ah, that's interesting. So you think he might have a crack at the Euros?
Yes, I do. I think that he looks at that team, and there's nothing better as a manager than looking at the team and looking at its quality and saying, I have a very, very good squad and I have a very good team at international level. And every manager wants to work with the best, and I think it's the best England have had for many, many years. So I think he should stay with it, and he grows with experience. He was inexperienced when he took over. His experience has grown and grown, as well as the young lads that joined him at that time, and more young lads coming through. So we are getting better and hopefully more resilient. And in the end, hopefully we can clinch a tournament, and that would have to be in a couple of years' time.
A couple of quick ones for you, Big Sam. Do you think that Harry Kane, who is an outstanding professional, he's a great athlete, incredibly talented, will he be able to move on from that missed penalty, or was that his, no pun intended, Gareth Southgate moment? Will it haunt him? Will it haunt his career?
Harry will take the next penalty at Tottenham when he gets home, so he won't have a problem with that. So I think he's that type of player and that type of character. While it will take him a while to get over it, he will go back to Tottenham and he will be the chief penalty taker. I think that in the end, you know, you can't be 100% as a penalty taker. Unfortunately, you don't want to miss it when it matters the most. And of course, it mattered the most in this particular game, you know. And the sad thing for me was the second goal for France. I think that we could have avoided that. I think that we should have defended that better. And of course, because we didn't, we ended up behind again and getting a little bit desperate. But when we got that penalty, I felt that we were going to go into extra time again and see where we went from there.
Yeah, that's right. You go into extra time and all bets are off. Who's going to win this cup, do you think, Sam?
Well, I think France. I think that they've got the resilience, and certainly they have the most experienced manager of all in the World Cup. So I think France are the team to beat now, certainly by the fact that they can play under par, and England showed that how good they were by making France look under par, particularly in the second half. But they still find a way to get through, and that's what we have to do. We have to find a way to get through these in these tournaments if we are not playing our best, and we've still got to try and find that yet.
Big Sam, it's my view that you are the one that got away, but you're still young, you're still fit, and of course, you know, an absolute passionate fan of, well, you know, you're getting it done. Have you got another big job in you?
If one comes up, Mark, I have a big job in me, which whether one comes up, whether somebody picks the phone up and rings me. So if they do that, then I'll be very interested. But we would have to wait and see. I can't actively say what job I'm going to get. Somebody needs to ring me up and say, will you come and manage my football club? And if that's right for me and for them, then I'd be delighted to.
And if they've got any sense, they will pick up that phone. Big Sam Allardyce, it's been the greatest privilege to have you on the show, and I hope you'll return to the programme soon and we can talk about everything else, including sorting out this country, which is in a right royal mess. Yeah. Big Sam for Prime Minister, that's what I call a big job, and he could certainly sort the country out. We need a team talk from the voice of common sense. Brilliant stuff. Thanks to Big Sam. Next up, let's get to our rather exciting news agenda. It's going to be a simple one, which is, should we be feeding wild animals? Don't go anywhere.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Dubes & Co. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Dubes & Co.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing. You see, amazing.
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
We're going to talk about feeding wild animals at the moment, but let me bring you up to speed on the World Cup. England are out. It's a real shame. They lost 2-1 to France. The great Harry Kane, one of my footballing heroes, missed the second penalty. He did score the first. And before we get to feeding wild animals, Lembit, you've got some quite strong views about the nature of England's departure, all too familiar.
Yeah, Southgate did this in, I think, 96. He missed a penalty. We've now got a situation where he had to do one thing, OK? He had to do one thing. He
had one job.
Kick it in the goal. He missed the goal. If actually the goalie had to save it, that's forgivable.
So what they say in football terms, that you've got to hit the target, that means at least aim the ball for within the posts.
Yeah, and I don't think he's ever going to live that down. I can't see, I'm sorry to say, how Harry Kane can ever lead one of our international teams again. It's heartbreaking.
And the idea that Gareth Southgate gets another tournament, I don't think so. I mean, you know about leadership. You know about management. You're an entrepreneur, and you've been in The Apprentice. And this guy, OK, he's an OK manager, but he has not taken this company to the sort of FTSE 100, has he?
No, I agree. And if he were in The Apprentice, I think Lord Sugar would have fired him by now.
Yeah, probably a couple of tournaments ago. Now, listen, after recently visiting a local park to feed the ducks, a pensioner has been slapped with a fine of 150 quid. William Varnum visited Watermead Park in Leicester with his wife and his 99-year-old disabled aunt to feed the ducks. But listen, it begs the question, is it wrong to feed wild animals? What do we think, Ryan? Mark, do you feed wild animals?
I do. I go to my local park. I have a dog. I recently got a cockapoo, and I'm always at the park.
See a doctor about that?
After the show.
How harsh you are.
Have you got a
family show, you know.
Have you got a big cockapoo?
It's pretty big.
Is it hairy? Is it?
No.
You guys are obscene.
Stop it,
This
you.
is too much.
Your minds are like a sewer. Ryan, Mark and I were nicely brought up. And we're
just talking about the dog.
We're talking about breeds, aren't we?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what we're talking about.
Calling a spade.
So what creatures do you feed in the park?
I feed all of the creatures. Anything in the pond, I feed. So just the ducks, actually.
Is it bits of bread or...?
Yeah, bits of bread, whatever. And I don't see an issue. And the fact that Ealing Council have now fined this poor man, who's 68, £150, for just feeding the ducks is ridiculous.
And it's not like he dumped a sort of loaf of bread, into the water.
Right.
These were seeds.
Right, exactly. I wonder if there were any signs to say, do not feed these ducks.
No. I believe the Ealing Council has said he was littering.
Yes, which is ridiculous, because it's not littering. Does that constitute as littering?
No, it doesn't. I completely agree with you on this. When it comes down to it, let's make sure there is no wild animal life in any park, anywhere in this country, because obviously they're bad for the environment, because there is no climate crisis. But I suspect it's all connected to that, Mark Dolan.
Well, listen, lots of people think there is a climate crisis, but one thing is interesting is plenty of vets will tell you that you shouldn't be giving bread to birds, for example, that it's not actually good for them, Lembit.
OK, so let's have a look at the statistics. Let's see the data. I grew up giving bread to ducks in actually Abbey Park, which is also in Leicester. And nobody came and said, oh, that's really bad. Let's have a reality check. Maybe animals know what's good for them.
But what about those creepy old ladies that feed pigeons?
Yeah, they need to be stopped. I think there's a line that needs to be drawn.
But wait, who looks after the animals like the ducks in the ponds at the parks? If they're there, does this make sense? Like,
well, they're wild, aren't they? I mean, surely they should
are they?
themselves.
Are they? Really?
They're tame. They're
yes,
tame.
they are there in a pond, which is put in a park by the park.
I'm sure they just eat anything.
Surely,
anyway.
then they should provide the right food so that we can then feed them the right food and live happily ever after.
I think it just shows a lack of humanity. Councils have these targets, and they're just hounding people to make money. And they're greedy, and I think it's cruel, especially in a cost of living crisis. This poor man, who's nearly 70 years old, has been hit by this amount of money.
Council officers.
It's disgusting.
If you see a council officer, don't feed him.
Very briefly, I've got a friend who feeds the foxes. Yes or no?
Vermin should be in prison.
Yeah,
if this isn't acceptable,
I would shoot them. I don't mean the foxes. I mean my neighbours. We'll get to more very, very shortly.
TMI.
We've got the papers at exactly 10:30. You can set your watch to it. Next up, Kinsey Schofield, the queen of US royal reporting, is going to be talking about the fallout from Harry and Meghan's TV documentary. And it's interesting because the Hollywood A-list have given them the cold shoulder. And in my take at 10, I'll be talking about the letters that you're sending this Christmas that may not arrive until February. What's the point in that? Lots to get through. See you in 3. I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by 2 of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late-night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison? I don't believe in prisons. I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Lawrence Fox, on GB News. Frank, fun, fearless and sometimes serious. Much as I love a Friday night punch-up, what I really want is a battle of ideas. I want to look at things differently. I want to hear different voices and engage with your unique experiences. Every Friday at 7 p.m. on GB News.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Welcome back to Mark Dolan tonight. I've got to say that whenever I venture out, if I'm doing a live show, an event, or just in Tesco, I get wonderful feedback from you, our incredible viewers. So if you're enjoying the show and if you're enjoying the channel, tell your friends, tell your family, and let's change the world together. But I've just got 2 words for you. Thank you, because we would be nothing without you. And that army of loyal viewers is growing by the day. It's 10 o'clock. Welcome to Mark Dolan tonight. In my take at 10 in just a moment, the scandal of the Christmas cards that may not be delivered until February. And in the news agenda with my panel, is age just a number? South Koreans will now be 1 year younger due to a cultural tradition that is soon to be abandoned. We'll discuss the issue of age very, very shortly. Looking forward to that. It's a cracking topic. Also, have we gone too far with robots? I've got 2 robot stories for you. First of all, there's now a robot animal that's armed by the police in San Francisco, and it can shoot people, which sounds worrying, but another robot just saved someone's life this month. So we'll talk about robots next. We've also got the papers live and uninterrupted from 10:30. But first, the headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Thank you very much, Mark. This is the latest from the GB newsroom. The Prince of Wales says he's gutted for England, who've been knocked out of the World Cup, losing 2-1 to France. England went into the second half of the match a goal down, but equalised through a Harry Kane penalty. It wasn't enough in the end, as a 78th minute goal from Olivier Giroud sealed the win, much to the devastation of these England fans. France faced Morocco in the semi-finals, who beat Portugal 1-0 earlier today. Well, despite England's loss, former England manager Sam Allardyce told GB News the team and Gareth Southgate have a lot to be proud of.
They have matched the world champions. There's no doubt about that. In fact, bettered the world champions in the second half. So there's a lot to be positive about, even though we don't feel like it at the moment. And certainly the England team and the backroom staff will be very dejected on the back of they've matched and in the second half bettered France, who are the world champions at the moment.
Officials say searches will continue through the night following the deaths of at least 3 people following an explosion on the island of Jersey. The blast happened in a tower block of flats in the early hours of the morning in St Helier. It's feared the number of casualties could still climb, with around a dozen people thought to be missing. Chief Fire Officer Paul Brown says the search and rescue operation could take days.
It is a total collapse. And so the primary challenge is that, one, it is dangerous to operate in and around the area, but secondly, anything that we do or don't do in the wrong way might then jeopardise the chances of survival for somebody who might yet be able to be, sort of rescued. So we have to do everything in a slow, methodical way, and we have to make sure that all of the right equipment with the right expertise is in place in order to do that.
Energy regulator Ofgem says it's extremely concerned that vulnerable people in Sheffield have been without gas for a week. Hundreds of customers were left without heating after a water main burst last Friday, saturating the gas network. Ofgem has described the situation as extremely difficult, made worse by the sudden cold snap. Distribution company Cadent says all affected homes and commercial properties will be automatically compensated. RMT General Secretary Mick Lynch has called for an urgent meeting with the Prime Minister. It's to try to resolve the long-running dispute over pay and conditions for rail workers. Union members are due to stage 2 48-hour strikes next week, following months of industrial action over the deadlocked row. TV, online and DAB+ radio. This is GB News. Now it's back to Mark Dolan tonight.
My thanks to Tatiana Sanchez, who returns in an hour's time. It's 10 o'clock. Welcome to Mark Dolan tonight. In my Take at 10 in just a moment, the scandal of the Christmas cards that may not be delivered until February. And in the news agenda with my panel, South Koreans are about to become a year younger. Find out why later in the show. Tackling lots of big stories tonight are my brilliant all-star panel of Apprentice star and entrepreneur Ryan Mark Parsons, X Factor singer and legal researcher Katie Waitels, and former Lib Dem MP Lembit Opik. Plus tomorrow's papers, live and uninterrupted at exactly 10:30. I want to hear from you throughout the show, mark at gbnews.uk, and more reaction to the fallout from Harry and Meghan's rather well-viewed but much derided documentary from the Queen of US royal showbiz and political reporting, Kinsey Schofield. Kinsey's up shortly, but first, my take at 10. Return to sender, address unknown. Striking postal workers have warned that Christmas cards may not be delivered until February. What is the point in that? You may as well wait for Easter, or if you're sending cards right now, just write Merry Christmas 2023 with a marker pen. Now, I understand and sympathise with those going on strike. Millions of Brits in all sectors are struggling financially because the invisible cancer of inflation is raising the costs of fuel, energy and essential goods. And the working poor are now using food banks because the value of their wages has been so diminished by inflation. The problem is you can't fight inflation with pay rises. That's like using a flamethrower to put a fire out. As we saw in the 1970s when union bosses were winning settlements of up to 30%, that's right, you heard me right, 30%, the cost of prices just spiralled further. Across the board, public sector pay rises amount to an arms race with inflation, and that's a fight you will never win. Posties, nurses, public sector lawyers, train drivers, civil servants, their demands for more money no doubt have merit. But if they all get their way, with a combination of surging inflation baked into our economy for years to come, as well as more eye-watering debt because these pay rises will come from borrowed billions, Britain will sink further into the economic quicksand. I wish it wasn't this way, but we shut down the country for 2.5 years. We borrowed £500 billion to pay healthy people to stay at home. and we closed once viable businesses, all in an historic attempt to stop a seasonal respiratory virus. I pointed this out at the time, but here we are. We've made our bed, we've got to lie in it. Britain is broke. For nurses to strike sets a dangerous precedent. For the RMT union to strike over Christmas is cruel. And for posties to go on strike is self-destructive. It will just discourage customers from sending letters. They'll use email instead. And it will push customers into the arms of DHL and Hermes for their parcel deliveries. Postman Pat must be furious, and I've no doubt his pussy is raging. Well, it's Postman Pat and his black and white cat, isn't it? Now, what do you think? Mark at gbnews.uk. Do you have sympathy for those going on strike? I do. I've got sympathy, but the country's broke, the cupboard's bare, there's no money. What are you going to do? Reacting to my big opinion and the papers at 10:30 sharp are Apprentice star and entrepreneur Ryan Mark Parsons, X Factor singer and legal researcher Casey Waisel, and former Lib Dem MP and filmmaker Lembit Opik. Katie, what do you think about the posties going on strike?
It breaks my heart because, you know, they have an absolute right to stand up for what they believe in and, you know, and what they are much deserved and have worked so hard for. The cost of living, as you've said, is forever increasing, and their wage should be reflective of that. So it's really the bigger question is what's going to happen in with the budgets. What's government saying about this?
Yeah, I mean, look, Katie, I think the bottom line is, you know, my view is that I think many in the public sector, many in the private sector merit a pay rise.
Yeah.
Inflation is making everyone poorer. But where's the money going to come from? We can't borrow any more money. And these pay rises are inflationary. And inflation is the biggest problem.
Well, I agree with you, but what are they going to do about that? I mean, I keep hearing about this digital currency and this digital bank. So, I mean, they may as well just do it already so we can figure this out.
No! World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab.
I mean, I don't stand for it. I'm just saying, like, on my Twitter sphere.
You're another of those celebrities that's been got at.
No way. I'm just sick to death of, like, people passing the buck and kicking the can down the road. The government are in charge of budgets, and they've got to figure it out. They can't keep passing a hot potato. They've got to do something about it already, because it is having such a severe impact on people's lives, as we've just seen, you know, with the people where their gas was cut for a substantial amount of time. People are vulnerable, and also from a financial standpoint. I mean, the gas and electric bills alone are just disturbing. Everything is going up, and you know, why should our posties then walk up and down the streets in the freezing cold, knowing that the government, who should be giving them a pay rise, you know, are just sat there basically a doormat?
Ryan Mark Parsons, you are an entrepreneur, so you're a money man, but you're a negotiator as well. So how would you handle these strikes if you were in charge?
Well, I think it's all about negotiation, but the trouble is with these militant union leaders, it's very difficult to come to a resolution with these kinds of people because they are so arbitrary and they're not willing to listen. And what I see now is a December of chaos and possibly months of chaos going forward into the new year. We're talking about 100,000 nurses going on strike, and that is now leaving 15,000 operations being postponed. We're talking about ambulance workers going on strike, putting lives at risk. This is dangerous, and they're not recognising the chaos that they are causing.
Who's not recognising it?
Well, the union leaders that are unwilling and demanding these hefty price increases. And as Mark said, in terms of dealing with inflation, as prices go up, if salaries go up, prices will go up, and you can't fight fire with fire. So there has to be a point where these union leaders come together with the government and are willing and open-minded to negotiate and come to a settlement that is reasonable for both parties. But that isn't happening, and they're putting lives at risk, and that is unacceptable.
But maybe the government has to come to the table too, rather than being on the side of what you're presenting it as. I understand what you're saying, but really, why is it that the people in government are getting their pay rises, yet the people that are putting their even their lives at risk, if we go back to the pandemic, etc., that have absolutely given their lives and are so just cast to the side and neglected, yet the people up in the House of Commons are all having their cheese and wine.
Well, I actually feel very sorry for the armed service workers because whilst the border force workers go on strike, these servicemen and women are actually going to stand in their places when they should actually be spending quality time with their families. Yeah. So I actually feel a great deal of sympathy towards those men and women that have fought for our country that are now checking passports and controlling our borders. I think it's totally egregious and more needs to be done by union leaders to just be slightly more reasonable and come to some agreement with the government to find a resolution.
Well, Lembit, is it the government's fault for not doing more to resolve this issue?
Yes, it is, but not for the reasons that we've discussed so far. You may think me a stuck record about the environment, but the fundamental problem here is the reason that the UK has got the worst inflation rate in just about any developed country is because we've got this idiotic energy policy. We think that we can actually stop climate change. Climate will always change, but energy's roughly 70% more expensive than it was before. That's where it goes wrong. I'm actually more sympathetic than Ryan to the claims for the increases that they asked for, but the government has to recognise, unless they actually change their energy policies, we're going to get 8, 9, 10, 12% inflation. There's a second problem. A small number of banks are trying to destroy the credit ratings of individuals. Now, I'm not going to name one of those banks, but it's doing it to me. I will come back to your show in a week's time if they haven't negotiated with me about this.
Please do.
My credit rating should be good, but they don't care. So the second problem here is some banks don't give a damn. The big ones are responsible, but I'll come and name and shame the bank, one of the banks, which is not doing that, and that's destroying hundreds of thousands of lives.
Let me know your thoughts on the strikes and specifically the posties. Do they deserve a pay rise? I love my postman, and he's a brilliant guy, and they come in all weathers. It's a great service. But as I've said, the economy's broke. I don't know what the answer is. Please offer yours, mark@gbnews.uk. Next up, we've got the papers, and we've got the queen of US showbiz, royal and political reporting, Kinsey Schofield, with US reaction to that documentary from Harry and Meghan. See you shortly.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. B, I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Welcome back to Mark Dolan tonight. We've got the papers at exactly 10:30 sharp. You can set your watch to it, but we've got a sneak preview. A couple of front pages have come in. So, Cal, what have you got for us? Let's have a look at some of the offerings from Fleet Street. We've got the Sunday Telegraph, and here's what they are splashing with. Of course, we know that England are out of the World Cup, and that is the main photo story. A dejected Harry Kane. His team, England, are out of the World Cup. And next up, the Euros. Meanwhile, Labour vows war on health unions. There you go. So Keir Starmer, a robust position when it comes to striking health workers. And The Observer. Let's have a quick look at The Observer before we get to Kinsey. We will suspend strikes if you talk about pay, health unions. Yeah, well, that's how the unions always negotiate. That's not a story. But that is The Observer. That was the Sunday Telegraph. We've got all of the rest of the papers at exactly 10:30 with full panel reaction. But it's time now for US News with the Queen of US showbiz, royal and political reporting, Kinsey Schofield. Hi, Kinsey.
What a week. I feel like I haven't slept in days.
No. Have you put a Nespresso machine in your bedroom now?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and a puke bucket for every time I have to rewatch the trailer and the show.
A fascinating story in the Daily Mail newspaper about the damage of this new documentary series, Harry and Meghan, which, of course, the first half of which dropped on Thursday, 3 one-hour episodes, the impact it will have on William and Harry's relationship. Can these brothers ever reconcile?
Mark, this is a really difficult situation. Harry basically insults Catherine and William multiple times throughout that 3 hours, insinuating that William specifically married to fit the mold of a woman that would be acceptable in the royal family. I don't know who else he would be talking about how no one else can marry for love when his father married his mistress. I mean, his dad lucked out. And, you know, what's interesting about this story in the Daily Mail is they say that no matter how angry William is, they say, well, there's no going back for William. He's insulted his wife, the love of his life. There's no going back. But no matter how angry William is, William does not want anyone talking negatively about Harry to him. And I think that tells us exactly the kind of man William is. He, you know, you wake up, I imagine, over there, Mark, and thank God that William is the heir, because he is a true leader. He has a good heart and he is a good man.
I spoke to the former editor of The Sun newspaper, Kelvin Mackenzie, on Thursday when I was sitting in for Mark Stein. And by the way, you joined us on that show as well. It was a brilliant interview that we had. And Kelvin said it's time for the palace to get tough with this couple. They've tried appeasement, haven't they? They've tried the softly approach. Do you anticipate a change in tack from the firm?
You know, Mark, I really don't. I think that the royal family is going to continue to distance themselves through silence. We are above this. We are royalty. You are reality show celebrity. We're not taking your calls anymore. And actually, I think that this is not necessarily about race. I think that it's Meghan Markle, you know, just livid over the fact that she feels rejected by the Prince and Princess of Wales. You can look at the total montage of all of her friends throughout the 3 hours, and it's Meghan and all of her white friends. I'm just like, how are we disrespecting your culture when it seems like you just discovered it as well?
Yes, and it seems that Meghan and Harry have thrown shade at William and Kate. Some implication that Kate is a kind of Stepford wife, if you like, in royal terms, that she's a cardboard cutout, a royal in waiting, someone that fits the mould.
And it's ridiculous. I mean, I gave you this example when I saw her in Boston. She wanted to stay inside. She was loving on puppy dogs. She was, she was loving on babies. If you had a baby next to you, she made a beeline to you. This is a very affectionate and loving woman. I think that William and Catherine were both very protective of Harry, and their BS meter rang true when they stumbled upon Meghan Markle, and they were just being careful.
I mean, is Kate Middleton a royal robot?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. We're getting to see so much more of her. We've got this Christmas special coming up on the 15th that Harry and Meghan are looking to ruin through dropping their 3 episodes at the same time. No, I mean, she's glamorous, she's stoic, she's beautiful, she's fabulous, but she's protective of her space, and rightfully so. I also think you need to keep in mind that at the time, Meghan was a single woman. She tells you she was just trying to live her single life when she stumbled upon Harry. And Catherine is a mother of 3. She's a human jungle gym. She's got all these babies crawling all over her, and that's where she wanted to be. She wanted to be with her babies. She didn't want to be running around with this girl declaring that this is her single summer or whatever.
Has there been friction between Kate and Meghan for a long time, would you say?
I think that Meghan thought so. I just think that Kate has been above it all, and the Princess of Wales had other priorities, like her children, like her duty, like her job. I think they were very protective of Harry. They loved him. I mean, he was the adorable, quirky third wheel for such a long time. And Catherine had become close to some of his ex-girlfriends and knew what they were going to deal with, knew what they had dealt with. And I just don't think Meghan was similar to the ex-girlfriends. And I think Catherine was worried. They talk about how the family didn't like that Meghan was an actress. We know that's not true. We know that they encouraged her to continue acting. But I imagine when you know that somebody is pursuing a career in entertainment, it makes you wary of if they're utilizing your brother-in-law to elevate themselves and elevate their career.
Harry and Meghan's A-list friends appear to have gone very quiet this week. The Obamas and others. Tell me more.
George Clooney. Where's George Clooney? Where's Oprah? I mean, the second the Queen died, Oprah sitting in front of a...
Now, we've just lost the line to Kinsey Schofield. I've got to say, it was the most fascinating week in terms of royal stories. And on Thursday, 3 more episodes drop, and we'll be covering that live on GB News with more explosive coverage. Kinsey, I think we lost the line, but we've got you back. I think that was Meghan. I think she was outside your apartment in Hollywood. She cut through the internet cable because she'd heard enough. Yes.
No, it was Elton John. He was trying to shut us up.
Yeah, exactly. Dear old Elton, the halo has slipped. The high-profile friends, the Clooney's very quiet. Do you think that the Hollywood elites are slightly embarrassed by what we've seen this week?
I do. I think that they're going to continue to distance themselves. Gayle King, Oprah's friend, is the only one that has come out in support of them so far. And I do think you're going to continue to see them distance themselves because Harry and Meghan are being branded as troublemakers. They're always in conflict. There's always drama, and nobody wants to be associated with that.
Harry and Meghan have said this was never about privacy. You couldn't make it up, could you?
Oh, Mark, how many interviews have we listened to, specifically with Harry, where he talks about the press intrusion, and he talks about how, how he's reminded of his mother every time he's with Meghan. We have receipts. That's what blows my mind. For Meghan to say she had no royal training, I'm telling you, British etiquette expert Edmund Fry, he lives right down the street from me, Mark, right down the street from me at Rose Tree Cottage. And Meghan learned royal etiquette from this man in Pasadena. People have followed them over the last few years. You can't just change your mind. There are a million interviews where they say the exact same, they say the complete opposite of what they're saying today. And I just don't know, do they just make this stuff up as they go?
Could well be the case. Kinsey, can't wait to see you back on the channel. Fantastic coverage after what has been the showbiz story of the year. Do check out Kinsey's brilliant website, To Die For Daily, and we'll see you in a week's time, the fabulous Kinsey Schofield. Next up, the papers. Don't go anywhere.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions. I have no time for cultural totalitarianism. We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Well, it's exactly 10:30, so it's time for the papers. They are in hot off the press, and let us start with the Sunday Telegraph. And here's what they're leading with. And you can imagine and you can guess what this will be. It's the World Cup, of course. England are out. They lost to France 2-1. Harry Kane scored the first penalty, but he missed the second. Dejected and devastated. Look at the pain in his eyes. England paid the penalty, say the Sunday Telegraph. Meanwhile, Labour vows war on health unions. NHS must reform or die, says Shadow Health Secretary, as country braces for a wave of strikes. Cut £7 billion spending on woke projects, MPs tell Chancellor. And asylum seekers in hotels could be recruited by Islamist group. Team, if you could do me a printout of that with a little bit better accuracy on the typeface, because I'd like to get into the meat of that story. So could of the Sunday Telegraph. Let's get to the Observer now. We will suspend strikes if you talk about pay, say health unions. Health unions made a dramatic offer last night to suspend a wave of planned strikes that threaten to cripple the NHS over Christmas and the New Year if ministers agree to open serious discussions over pay. Also, Atlas Lions roar. Benoun, a top footballer, celebrates after Morocco defeated Portugal 1-0 in Qatar to become the first African side to reach the World Cup semi-finals. And it could have been us. I think we've got the Express now. Is that right? Where should we go next? What would you like, folks? Let's go to the Express and let's see what they've got. Au revoir, Qatar. England pay penalty in World Cup thriller with France. And Christmas strikes cost £4 billion. And Blunkett warns voters will blame Labour. Former Home Secretary under New Labour, David Blunkett. Sunday people now. Brave World Cup stars bow out. Qatar heroes. Penalty anguish for England and Harry Kane. Now we'll get to more of the front pages shortly, but let's get reaction now from X Factor singer and legal trainee and charity founder Katie Waisel. What a life, what a career, and she's only about 25.
I can imagine.
And another extremely prolific and, what's that word? Prodigious? What's the other one where you were a bit ahead of your time, a few years ahead of your time? Precocious Ryan Mark Parsons. And a wise head on young shoulders, Lembit Opik.
Other way around.
There you go, exactly. The silver fox that he is. So lots and lots of stories here to tackle. I'm interested by this story, Ryan Mark Parsons. Labour vows war on health unions. Not a headline you would expect. So this is Keir Starmer talking tough with the unions, which dovetails with that story in the Express about how Labour grandee David Blunkett says that Labour are going to have to stand up to these unions. Otherwise, the public will blame Labour for the strikes, not the Tories.
Yeah, and I think that's the right way to go about it. We've seen in the Express as well that it's costing a lot of money. These strikes are costly and they are dangerous. And I think that that's the stance Labour needs to take. If they're going to win the next general election, they need to have these stances. It needs to be explicitly clear to the electorate that they have to be tough on unions because it is costly, it is dangerous, and if it is left ambiguous, then where does the voter turn to?
Yeah, well, Katie, it's a challenge for Labour because they want to win at the next election. But if the unions are out of control and causing inflation and causing the national debt to grow, that's not a great proposal, a great offer to the British people. We'll get in and we'll give them more pay rises and we'll have more inflation and more debt.
Well, I don't look at it like that. I just think that, based on another paper where the unions have said that they will be willing to put a stop to these strikes.
Well, how nice of them.
Should ministers actually sit down and take them seriously? Well, what's the underlying message there is that up to this moment, I mean, we don't really technically know what goes on behind closed doors, do we? We're not in on those meetings, if meetings at all. And they're literally just in... What's being said here is just saying, just listen to us and take us seriously.
Well, they just want more money. I mean, I believe the RMT have been offered 8%. Is that right, Lembit?
Basically, I do know what goes on behind closed doors. Hypocrisy. The challenge I have for Keir Starmer, I don't dislike him as a person, but I completely dislike his disingenuous behaviour here is, how can you be paid for, as a party, by the unions, and then declare war on them? What actually happens if they become the government? Do they give them the 11, 15, 20% pay rise, which means all the self-employed will suffer? Or do they stand up to the very people who sponsor the Labour Party?
And the Labour Party is, at the best of times, in financial trouble, isn't it? They're always broke.
Well, basically, under Tony Blair, he actually played a blinder. He was very impressive in the mid-1990s. But he played a different game. It seems to me, my view, that Keir Starmer wants to be tough on the unions, but take their money. So, Keir, if you're watching now, please explain to us, how do you take the money but then play tough in terms of the strikes?
Wait, do you think it's a strategy for Labour to get in? Do you think that this is their public strategy then?
I think they like the optics. They want to look like they're going to be tough on the unions.
Right.
But I don't think the public appreciate these strikes.
He went to the CBI and said, we're going to be really good with the unions and we're going to be good for business. How can you say that at the same time as saying to the unions, well, sort it all out?
It's very contradictory.
Well, it's vastly hypocritical, but I don't see a way they're going to persuade the electorate to vote for Labour unless they are tough on the unions, because they are very unpopular. They're putting lives at risk. It's very costly.
But they just
so what is the answer?
So many. So, but wait, I'm okay. I'll be very accountable and just ask these questions just how it is, very just authentically. Because this is why I guess it's so confusing, because what goes on behind closed doors in terms of strategies of what Labour Party or Conservative Party or everything else, they're playing with people's emotions and lives in terms of who's going to get in. I feel like it's the X Factor all over again. It's ridiculous.
But at least the X Factor isn't killing people.
Well, it is, though. The reality TV shows actually do.
Yeah, but we're talking about a vast number of people because of the union strikes. Maybe the X Factor, I don't know how many
Well, I'm not
lives
saying that the X Factor itself killed people, so I just want to put that out there for the record. But I'm saying that there is a significant, and not that this is what we're here to speak about, but there is significant wrongdoings in the reality TV world and creative industry culture as a whole, where we have lost so many lives. You know, if you look at Love Island, for example, where it's tragedy. But I understand what you're saying in terms of the greater general population, but that's not what we're talking about. I'm just a little bit confused about, hang on a minute, if we're talking about who's to blame, well, really, the government are there. They are put or voted for in place with a role, a position, a responsibility to handle things so that unions may not necessarily need to then go on strike.
You have to be tough with the unions, because if you just accept whatever terms
you have to be tough with criminals. You have to be tough with industry sectors.
No, but we're not talking about that. But if you have to be tough on unions, because if you just accept whatever they put forward on the table, obviously that's not going to deal with inflation.
Such
and that's
as
not
the 19% that nurses are asking for.
Well,
now,
exactly.
we love our nurses, they deserve a pay rise, but what would a pay rise of 19% do to the national coffers and inflation?
Well,
what's their salary now? When's the last time they had a pay rise?
Yeah, but this is what happened in the 1970s. They accept these huge demands for salary increases.
Up to 30%.
And then costs a spiral, and then it doesn't solve anything. It increases national borrowing, and it leads to more financial turmoil. How does this resolve anything?
I know we're focusing on this one issue, and Mark raises a great question. The question that, in my view at least, Keir Starmer has to answer is, will you give them the pay rise or not?
Yeah.
That's what the country needs to know. And we can't vote for him as Prime Minister until we know the answer.
Well, we'll never get an answer because he's the king of sitting on the fence, isn't he? But he's hoping that will get him across the line and get him into number 10. Although it would spell chaos under a Labour government, wouldn't it? But if he's not willing at this stage to say which side he's going to pick, when he gets in, he'll have to, and then all hell breaks loose.
Rishi's in a lot of trouble at the moment because he can't bring the economy around on his own. He needs a bit of luck. But the thing in his favour is he's got 2 years to wait for Keir Starmer to mess up. And that's why Keir Starmer needs to raise his game. If he doesn't raise his game, then, like, I'm sorry to say, Harry Kane, he's going to miss the post.
Yes, indeed. Look at this story in the Sunday Telegraph. Cut £7 billion of spending on woke projects, MPs tell Chancellor. Jeremy Hunt faces a rebellion from 80 Tory MPs over £7 billion worth of government spending on so-called woke projects, diversity targets and all the rest of it. Lembit.
I'm not very woke because I was actually discussing this with somebody today. If you're not racist, if you're not sexist, if you're not discriminatory, you don't need laws and rules and investment to stop it.
Or diversity officers on 100 grand a year.
It's unbelievable. And also the woke thing has actually now caused people to be accused of being offensive when they're just being normal. We had an interesting example of this when the 83-year-old lady who served the royal family for a while.
Oh, yeah, Susan Hussey.
She was pulled down. Now, I wasn't there, so I can't really comment about the details, but I'm concerned about the fact that we don't make allowance for the past. The fundamental issue I've got here is now that most people in the UK are reasonable. They're not racist. They're not discriminatory. But we're spending all this money, £7 billion. It's not going to change the economy, but it is causing us to have to be very cautious about free speech.
Does the NHS, does it need diversity departments, diversity officers? We heard that the British police spend £10 million a year on diversity roles. Are they necessary?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. You know, we live in, a diverse world, a diverse country, and communities and the next generations and so on and so forth. Yeah, absolutely, because we've seen historically and very sadly continue to see discrimination. And that's why, even though you say yourself that you may not be racist or you may not be this and that and the other, but it is our responsibility to give a voice and champion change and protection for those that are.
But do you want that in the NHS when you'd rather the money went to sort of operations?
No, 100%. I mean, look at the NHS. We're not just talking about A&Es. We're talking about, care homes. We're just talking about people. I think people need to be protected.
I think we should exercise an element of practicality, a bit of pragmatism. I think it is great, I agree with you, there should be diversity, and we are a very diverse country, and that's something we should be proud of.
Right.
But we should be focusing, ultimately, on what matters most. And the NHS is in crisis, and I think we should be directing and channeling huge amounts of money, like £7 billion, towards saving the NHS instead of these woke projects that these MPs are talking to the Chancellor about. I think that is out of order, and I think more needs to be done to review where this money is being spent when we have an NHS on its hands and knees.
I have an interesting question, though. Do you think that if there were the right law and legislation in place and procedures through law enforcement that would follow the correct protocol, and law enforcement would follow their code of ethics, it being impartial and everything else like that, that we would need such measures?
Right. I had my phone hacked. I was in a meeting with the London Met. I know I had my phone hacked because I've spoken to the people who were approached afterwards. They did nothing about it. So let's not pretend.
Right.
At the end of the day, either we are a tolerant society or we're not. Spending £10 billion on pretending to be woke isn't going to make much difference.
Oh, I don't think anyone's pretending. I stand by and for everybody.
Very briefly, Katie asked a great question earlier, which is, what does woke mean? Do we even know? How do you understand it?
In the 1920s, it was about being tolerant and being aware of, it wasn't exactly described like this, but multiracial and multi-ethnic issues. A very worthy cause. But
if that's what woke is, then we're all woke, right?
Yes.
Most people are.
But it's been hijacked since then. And now you're punished for not being woke enough.
All right.
That's not comfortable.
And what does woke mean now, then? What is the new version of woke? I suppose it's just an illiberal outlook, isn't it? It's cancel culture.
Yeah, I think it's sort of morphed into this very vicious creature. And it's just become this thing that consumes anything that doesn't abide by the ever-changing and ever-evolving moral standards that these lefty, wokey, awful people like to preach from their high horse. And I think that is a shame, because I would say that I'm woke. In the traditional sense.
In the 20s way, you are.
Exactly, in the 20s way. But now, the modern-day definition of woke has just become this ugly, repulsive and very vindictive label to attach onto someone, and I can't stand for it. I don't really like talking to anyone who's today's version of woke, because they are illiberal, they're intolerant, and they're very vicious and nasty.
Briefly, Katie, I mean, have you seen that online? People that have pronouns in their Twitter bios, the people that say #BeKind are often anything but.
Anything but what?
Normally, they're quite nasty bullies. Do you not?
I mean, I put like #BeKind on some of my tweets. I think it's important to be kind, but does that mean that I'm...
Well, no, what it means is that Katie Waisel is woke and lovely.
Oh,
we love her. Yeah. Absolutely. She's my favourite. If only everyone woke was as fabulous as Katie. Look, much more from my very awake panel next. We've got more papers, so I'll see you in 2.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store? You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
It is coming up to 11 o'clock. We've got more from the papers, and let's have a look at the Sunday Mirror. And I'm afraid it's that rather sad story. England are out of the World Cup. World Cup agony for England. Lion hearts broken. Kane misses penalty as France triumph. I'm absolutely gutted for Harry and the boys. The Sun on Sunday. Harry's pain. Brave Three Lions out of the World Cup. Hero skipper missed pen hell. The Three Lions ace blasted a late chance to equalise over the bar. Boss Gareth Southgate consoled gutted Kane as millions watching back home shared the agony. Boy George exclusive, don't believe a word that Matt Hancock says pop legend. The Sunday Times now, it's all over for England again. And Brexit bill on ice amid hopes of New Year deal with the EU. Rishi Sunak has put the Northern Ireland Brexit Protocol bill on ice until the new year after private talks with Brussels paved the way for a new deal by February. Senior officials say the bill will not be returned to the Lords this year, giving negotiators time to thrash out new trade rules for a St. Valentine's Day agreement. That's got my heart aflutter. Desperate parents search for Strep A medicine as prices soar. Daily Star Sunday. England 1, France 2, cursed by pens and ITV. Merde! Now do we have to go Christmas shopping? The painful answer is yes, we do. Those are the rest of your front pages. Well done to the team for getting those ready. Fleet Street have taken a while to complete their front pages because of that big England story. But that could be a good news story there, Ryan Mark Parsons. Brexit bill on ice amid hopes of New Year deal with the EU. So this refers to the Northern Ireland Brexit Protocol bill. This would give the government the right to essentially trigger Article 16 to get rid of that border down the Irish Sea. But it may not come to that. And here's hoping it doesn't.
Well, exactly. But I think it's a good thing that there's more time now for negotiators to review that. And previously, before Rishi Sunak, Boris Johnson put through legislation. But I think coming out in February on Valentine's Day, allowing more time to make sure that everything is put in place properly.
Well, if Rishi Sunak gets a deal with the EU, with Brussels, which works for them and it works, most importantly, for the people of Northern Ireland, that's a big win for Rishi Sunak, isn't it? I mean, that is a
that is a foreign policy and economy triumph for him, and a political triumph.
Yeah, it'd be a significant political triumph for Rishi Sunak, and I think that might carry him forward into a next
Bit of
election.
momentum.
Yeah, exactly.
What do you think? I mean, could that be an easy win for Rishi Sunak if he sorts out the Northern Ireland Protocol?
It's not an easy win, and it won't be a big win for him, I'm sorry to say, across the UK. Most people... I was born in Northern Ireland. I was Shadow Secretary of State for Northern Ireland for a decade. Most people didn't understand it, and they didn't care about it. And Boris Johnson's greatest failure wasn't the parties. It was his failure to make any kind of significant economic deal with the EU. Yeah. They ran rings around him. So maybe we can get something. I hope that you're right. Maybe we can get something here. But there's nothing in it for Brussels to make this easy, because Italy and Greece aren't too happy about being in the EU. And the more uncomfortable it makes it look to leave, the worse it's going to be for us. But also, at the same time, when it comes down to it, it means it's more likely that the others won't leave.
Desperate parents search for strep A medicine as prices soar. Lots of parents and grandparents really worried about their little ones, Katie.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there was news recently in my son's school of children that with confirmed cases of strep A, and it's very frightening. As I said to you before, it becomes even more real when it's very close to home, and it's frightening. I just wish that there was a little bit more transparency and information as to kind of get clarity as why is this happening, and then what we can do to work alongside the NHS to help with, maintaining, I guess, kind of like a strong and calm head throughout that. It's frightening.
Do you think this is like a horror story because we're scared about the media and scared about the messages that we get? Or do you think it really is dangerous? Because I've got kids, young kids, but I don't think they're that much in danger.
Well, it's now saying that 16 children have caught the infection that has led to fatal sepsis.
Yeah,
out of what percentage? Out of what percentage of kids?
Still, any child.
Obviously, it's a fraction, but at the same time, these, I guess, would be healthy kids that are dying.
Well, these are real figures that are coming out.
It's devastating, and it doesn't matter. One is too many.
I mean, I hate to use the L word, but lockdowns has been linked. Health chiefs have suggested that because kids haven't been to school for a couple of years and mixed and picked up these bugs, they've got a problem with immunity.
It could be. My whole family's got my cough at the moment. They'll be better in like a month's time, and they won't get it again. I think that I don't want to reopen this now. I know where you stand on this. I think that we make ridiculous assumptions that politics can control viruses. They can't
control it, but they can definitely help with giving more transparent information.
Yeah, I agree.
And the truth to what's actually happening.
Most certainly. I understand why parents are beside themselves. This is quite an interesting story. It might be the future. San Francisco approves police proposal to use potentially deadly robots. So that's right, potentially armed robots as these kind of mechanical police officers. Is this dangerous, or is it the start of something good? There was also a story last month about a robot that saved someone's life in a cancer operation. So is AI and are robots good or bad for mankind?
Have you seen RoboCop? Because RoboCop's the good guy, and there's something like AC-205, which is the bad one. And,
that's the one that goes crazy in the office, right?
Yeah. Does
like all of us.
Yeah. So I actually used to work for a robot company called Starship, and it delivers your products to your house, and it's a benign, lovely thing. They're doing well in Milton Keynes.
But it's the genie's out of the lamp now, isn't it?
But they didn't have guns.
Right.
That's the difference. I don't really trust anything which looks a little bit too much like Terminator.
I mean, these robots, quite investable, Ryan, Mark.
Yeah, I guess there's an investment opportunity there, but at the same time, I would not invest in robots, especially robots with guns. I mean, we saw, for example, in Arizona in 2018, this Uber driver that was, this Uber car that was self-driving.
Yes, someone. Right.
And I think there's a real risk with technology when it's fully autonomous, that it can be dangerous and lethal. So, no, I wouldn't be investing any of my money into
They should use the money for these robots to actually educate their current police officers.
Maybe the robots are colourblind.
Well, that could be a good thing.
Yeah, well, there's an idea. Can I say you've been the most delightful panel tonight? Loved our debate. Many
Right
thanks.
back at you.
Well, there you go. Ryan, Mark, Lembit and Katie, do come back soon. Thanks for your company as well. It's been a really fun evening. Lots of great debates as well. We're back tomorrow at 9. See you then. Headliners is next.
Looking ahead to this evening's weather, and the UK is looking cold but mainly dry with some showers for northern and western coasts. Let's take a look at the details. Across southwest England, showers will ease for many inland but will continue for northern coasts of Devon and Cornwall and may turn wintry in places. A cold evening with a widespread frost. A mostly dry evening for southeast England, though, may be the odd shower for far southern coasts. Cold with a chance of freezing fog in places. For southern Wales, showers will continue around the coast, though any further inland may be wintry. Staying cold again with a frosty night to come. Across the Midlands, a mostly dry evening to come with maybe just the odd shower that may turn wintry over any higher ground. Cold once again with some freezing fog developing in places. For northeast England, it will be a dry end to Saturday though, and we may see the odd light shower for coasts. Some mist or freezing fog developing through the evening and feeling cold. Showers will push southwards across southern Scotland this evening and overnight, some of which will be of snow over high